Good evening and welcome to this special meeting of the Board of Directors of the Midpeninsula Regional Open Space District. My name is Zoe Christine Tucker. This meeting is now called to order. The time is 5:01 p.m. This meeting is being held in person at the district's administrative office and by teleconference. Members of the public can attend and participate in the meeting in person or via Zoom. Instructions for submitting public comment are available on the meeting agenda. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Director Gleason.
Here.
Director Sear.
Here.
Director Riffle.
Here.
President Christine Tucker.
Here.
Director Holman.
Here.
Director Kishimoto.
Here.
Director McNiven.
Here.
Thank you all present.
Thank you. All right, there is one item on this special meeting agenda this evening, and that is selection of design alternative for the Kennedy Trailhead Parking Area Improvement Project in Sierra Azul Open Space Preserve. Yeah, thank you.
Good evening to the board. My name is Mark Brandy. I'm a senior capital project manager in the engineering and construction department with the district. I'm also the project manager for the Kennedy Trailhead Parking Area Improvement Project, which we will be presenting to you this evening. Before I begin, I wanted to thank the members of the board in advance for your feedback this evening. I'd also like to thank the many members of the public who have provided feedback on the project to date to help inform the conceptual designs that we will present to you this evening. So with that, we'll start with a brief agenda for our presentation, for our staff presentation. We'll start with the recommendations from the general manager for the board of directors related to the project. We'll then take a step back and do a brief project overview to provide some context for you in your decision-making process this evening. We'll also discuss in more detail the public engagement process that we have followed to date to gather feedback from the community. We'll then present two conceptual design options in more detail for your consideration for the site. And then we'll talk about next steps should the board accept one of the two conceptual designs to move forward with the project. So with that, we'll begin with the general manager's recommendation, which again is to review and accept one of the two conceptual design alternatives that have been forwarded to the board by the Planning and Natural Resources Committee for the Kennedy Trailhead Parking Area Improvement Project. To provide a quick overview and context for the project, this map illustrates the existing boundaries of the Sierra Azul Open Space Preserve. Sierra Azul, as I'm sure you know, is the largest of all of the Mid-Pen preserves at over 19,000 acres of land in the southern Santa Cruz Mountains. Despite this very large, vast size for an open space preserve, it has relatively few existing access points, which are shown on this map in green. So the existing access points include the Kennedy Trailhead, which we'll be discussing this evening, as well as three southern access points centered around the Mount Umunum area of the preserve, the summit itself, as well as Bald Mountain and Jocks Ridge. Per the feedback from the Planning and Natural Resources Committee, we also did want to point out that there are two additional future access points that are planned for the Sierra Azul Open Space Preserve, which are shown here with the black callouts. Those two additional future access points include the Beatty property and parking area, which is located on the eastern shores of Lexington reservoirs, shown on the left side of this map, as well as the future access that is planned within the Rancho de Guadalupe portion of the preserve, which is currently a closed portion of the preserve. This map shows that potential additional access point, as well as the potential conceptual trail system within that currently closed portion of the preserve. But again, you can see that even with those future planned access points, there are still relatively few ways to get into and experience the open space preserve. So the Kennedy Trailhead continues to be a key access point for the community. These two images try to convey the existing conditions of the site. So the upper image shows a view of the existing parking area located immediately off Kennedy Road. The project site is located at the intersection of Kennedy Road within the town of Los Gatos, where it intersects with Top of the Hill Road, another residential road across from the parking area. As you can see in this top image within the shadows, despite being a very popular place to access the Sierra Azul Preserve, there are currently only 3 parking spaces that are available to the public at this location. And overflow parking is regularly observed on the adjacent roadways, including both Kennedy Road and Top of the Hill Road. Within the site, as you enter into the preserve beyond the parking area, as shown in the lower photo on this slide, the site is relatively flat, which is a convenient rarity within the Santa Cruz Mountains, within the town of Los Gatos, to have some relatively flat terrain with which to contemplate potential expansion of the access point to the preserve. We believe that this area was formerly used as an orchard, and that is indicated by the presence of some remnant fruit trees within this relatively flat area of the preserve. So the origination of the project itself and the contemplation of improvements at the project site was really born from 2 foundational documents that were developed by the district and approved by the board of directors. The first was the 2012 vision plan for the entirety of the district, which identified 54 priorities across district land to implement in order to fulfill Midpen's mission within the Santa Cruz Mountains. Specifically, the vision plan identified a need for expanded access to the Kennedy Lime Kiln area of the Sierra Azul Open Space Preserve, as well as the need for enhanced restroom facilities. So that's the first of the 2 foundational documents, and the second was developed in 2019, and that is the ADA Self-Evaluation and Transition Plan Update document developed by the district. Again, that was a district-wide document that looked at opportunities and needs to enhance accessible access under ADA to be code compliant with ADA within our district preserves and access points. And at the time of that document, it was identified and confirmed that ADA parking is not provided at the Kennedy location. It's currently not provided. There's no designated parking for ADA at the site, and no signage and grading requirements for the parking area itself as well. So those were the overarching goals that the district has established and would like to achieve at this site. With those goals in mind, the project originally began to think about potential improvements to the site back in 2021. At the time, it was contemplated to really focus on first achieving the goals of the ADA transition plan and establishing permanent ADA parking and a restroom facility, a permanent restroom facility that would be ADA accessible at the site. So that limited scope of work and of the project is shown on the map on the left side of this screen. We did then begin to present this concept to the community back in 2021. And we did receive feedback and concern with the limited scope of the project and the inability of this particular project as conceived to fulfill that original vision plan goal, which would be enhanced and expanded parking at the site to alleviate that overflow parking condition that continues to occur on adjacent roadways. So with that in mind, the project was deferred back in 2021 so that it could be reevaluated and rescoped as a larger project. It was then put back into our capital improvement plan with the goal of returning to the community with concepts for the larger public access point at the Kennedy Trailhead. At the time, back in 2021, staff did have the opportunity to begin some technical studies for the site, which did include a traffic study of the parking area. And so some valuable data that came from that traffic study did include parking counts to gauge on a typical weekend during peak use. When in peak use, the number of vehicles that were observed parking not only at the trailhead, but also on adjacent roadways. And the numbers that were documented at the time were between 8 and 20 parking cars parked at any given time on a peak weekend at the time. And so that maximum of 20 parking spaces has helped to inform us in our thinking about the conceptual designs that we'll present to you tonight. So staff have now had the opportunity to begin to restart the project in 2026. And that began with an overall opportunities and constraints analysis for the site. So just looking again at the big picture and what we can potentially do to enhance access to the preserve in this location. So some of the constraints that are immediately apparent when visiting the site are identified on this map in orange, and some opportunities are identified in green. Some of the key limitations associated with the existing conditions at the site are obviously the limited parking capacity being paramount limitation to the opportunity to experience and visit the preserve from this location. There are some limitations documented in the traffic study related to sight distance at the existing driveway, but the traffic engineers have provided recommendations on how that can be enhanced at the site. Obviously, another constraint is that this site is located adjacent to a residential neighborhood within the town of Los Gatos, so wanting to be sensitive to the needs of adjacent neighbors to our properties. Finally, some additional constraints on the eastern side of the site are that there are a number of natural resource constraints that we also want to be very sensitive to in our planning and design. Those include steep topography surrounding the central sort of open flat area of the site that we would need to avoid. As well as an existing drainage feature, an ephemeral drainage feature on the eastern side of the site, wanting to be only developing sites that's well away from that potential aquatic feature to avoid any impacts to the natural environment. In addition to the drainage, there is also the site is surrounded by mature oak canopy on all sides. So those are some of the constraints. Some of the opportunities is fundamentally that there already is existing access at this location. So we would not be proposing to develop new access in a sort of a pristine area of the preserve. We would be proposing to build on and expand upon an existing access point to the preserve. Again, there is the relative rarity of the open flat terrain beyond the gate that could be potentially utilized for additional improvements. There are also opportunities related to the fact that the site is surrounded by that mature oak canopy, which does offer a pleasant microclimate, shade at certain times of the day for visitors who are arriving to or exiting the preserve. There is also ample vegetative screening in the form of existing mature oak trees between the potential parking area expansion as between the parking area and Kennedy Road, which provides some visual separation of the potential parking area from adjacent roadways. So, with those opportunities and constraints in mind, we did begin a public engagement process earlier in this year in order to restart our dialogue with the community and to get feedback on what the surrounding community and adjacent neighbors would like to see at the site. So this engagement process began with an open house format meeting at the trailhead itself on March 21st of this year. During that meeting, we met with many adjacent neighbors who attended the open house event, as well as visitors to the preserve from more distant locations who happened to be arriving on that day. We were able to speak with many interested members of the community. And some of the feedback we got was a desire to screen and minimize visual impacts of any proposed improvements from the adjacent roadways and properties, and a desire to limit tree removal where feasible, a desire for the district to consider gravel or other natural surfacing associated with the parking area, suggestion of installing signage related to the trail conditions and building awareness of members of the public as to the challenging trail conditions beyond the trailhead. And definitely heard a desire to increase and maximize parking to alleviate the need for overflow parking on adjacent roadways. We also heard some concerns about the potential for after-hours activity associated with development of a larger trailhead facility at the site. So in addition to the open house and the feedback that we received then, we also have had open since March and continue to have open on the district website a brief online survey to try to gather as much additional feedback as we can from members of the community related to the project. To date, we have received over 150 responses to our online survey, which we think is a great amount of feedback to be able to receive and try to incorporate into our designs. So some of the questions we'll just review briefly that we asked in this online survey and some of the feedback that we've received. We've been able to learn that the large majority of respondents to our survey do not live within walking distance of the Kennedy trailhead itself, and therefore either drive or bike to the site to arrive at the site. We also learned that the majority of respondents to the survey either visit the Kennedy trailhead in between once a week or a few times a month was the average visitation. That also was a parallel to how often respondents would visit other mid-pen preserves, again, ranging from once a week to once every few months. Again, informing the design, respondents also said that they typically arrive to the Kennedy trailhead, the majority of respondents said either by bike or by driving in single occupancy vehicles to the site. We also asked if members of the community have experienced any issues related to visiting the trailhead, and approximately 1/3 of respondents did say that they have experienced issues when they arrived to the site. And in reviewing those responses, the vast majority of the issues that were encountered were related to parking capacity and limited capacity at the site. Finally, the online survey also specifically asked about design elements or site amenities that members of the public would like to see implemented at the site. And a majority, more than half of respondents, did indicate a desire for increased parking capacity and new restrooms at the site. So again, kind of going back to the core improvements that were contemplated by the vision plan. Our survey does indicate that a majority of the respondents to the survey would support those original goals for the project. There's also a desire to see some additional amenities represented here, such as additional trailhead seating, bike racks, and additional screening with vegetation. So with all of that great feedback from our community in mind, staff have developed two conceptual design options for your consideration this evening. So this diagram represents the first of the two options for the site. Excuse me. So this first option would provide up to 18 standard parking vehicle spaces plus one ADA van accessible parking space for a total of 19 spaces. That is, you may note, that is very close to what our original traffic study for the project did indicate was a maximum of observed parking on adjacent roadways. In order to achieve the sort of the maximum capacity of what we believe may be possible at the site as represented by this design, we did need to implement a two-way circulation pattern. We have one driveway entering and exiting the site off of Kennedy Road, but the site does utilize a dead-end parking configuration where visitors who are wanting to leave the site or who enter the site when there is no longer parking available would need to do a three-point turn at the eastern end of the parking lot in order to get back out of the parking area. So that is a bit of a limiting factor in terms of circulation design. In order to achieve this design, we do believe that approximately 5 existing trees would need to be removed in order to accommodate the improvements. Of those trees, 2 of them are existing native oak trees, which would need to be removed in order to accommodate the need for a wider two-way driveway. But 3 of those trees are existing non-native trees within that former orchard. So 2 of the 5 would be native trees. In addition, the P&R committee had asked us to discuss and describe to the board, again, the potential surfacing of this expanded parking area at the site. So we've attempted to clarify that on this plan. And really the surfacing that we have imagined, again, we're still at the conceptual design phase, but what we have imagined is a combination of surfaces. We do have a requirement where ADA parking is required to be a firm and stable surface by code. So we have imagined that the ADA parking itself would be surfaced with concrete, as we traditionally do at our open space preserves, and adjacent ADA compliant paths of travel to and from the proposed restroom facility would also be a stabilized aggregate surface to be firm and stable and meet the required codes. We also imagine that the driveway itself, the initial apron of the driveway off of Kennedy Road, would likely need to be surfaced in a traditional asphalt material just due to the additional wear and tear on that portion of the access route. However, the majority of the project footprint as represented here, we do believe that there is the potential, and as suggested and requested that we consider by members of the community, we do believe that there's the potential to surface the majority of the parking area with a gravel surfacing to try to maintain the rustic character of the site and consistent with our district design guidelines for parking areas. So we believe that we should be able to do that because in regrading the site, we would be attempting to level the ground as much as possible, which traditionally could allow for the gravel surfacing. Finally, one additional detail or 2 additional details that I'll point out on this plan that the P&R committee requested that we point out. One is emergency access onto the Kennedy Trail alignment and wanting to make sure that any proposed improvements at the site would continue to allow for emergency vehicle access. And both of the options that we would present to you tonight would do so, would continue to provide access. In option 1, emergency access would be provided via the striped turnaround location at the eastern end of the site. We would then place a removable bollard system where rangers or other emergency personnel would be able to access the trail alignment via their vehicles as they do in the existing condition. So that condition would not change, and that critical use would continue to be feasible with this design. Finally, we also wanted to point out that this design does allow for a 30-foot setback from the potential aquatic feature that I described on the eastern end of the parking area, labeled as an existing drainage on the eastern end of the site. We have taken steps to make sure that we do not encroach within 30 feet of that drainage setback. That is a drainage setback that's been recommended internally by our natural resources department. That would all still need to be confirmed during the permitting process with the jurisdictional agencies. But we would endeavor to provide a vegetative buffer between that existing resource and our proposed parking area. So that is option number 1. And then for comparison and your consideration, here's option number 2 for the site. Option number 1 and option number 2 have many similarities, but I'll point out some of the key differences for your consideration. The key difference between option 1 and 2 is first and foremost is parking capacity. So option number 1 did allow for 18 standard vehicles plus 1 ADA space. Option number 2 has a lower capacity. It has, I believe it's 13 standard vehicle parking spaces and 1 ADA space. So overall, it would be 5 less overall spaces at this site versus option number 1. With the main reason being, and the key driver for the reduction in the number of spaces being the proposed circulation pattern at the site. So what this option would do is it would provide one-way circulation via a loop access road around the perimeter of the parking, and it would have the parking stalls located on the central portion of the parking area. We do believe that that is a superior design in terms of user experience and in terms of vehicular circulation, in that there is no dead-end configuration, no need for a 3-point turn, minimizes potential conflicts between vehicles and pedestrians within the parking area. However, it does represent a relatively significant reduction in the number of parking spaces that would be required. It also has a slightly larger project footprint. And when you have a larger project footprint, then that also in this case results in additional potential trees being required to be removed at the site. So in option number 1, we believe that up to 5 trees may need to be removed. In option number 2, we believe that could increase to up to 7 parking spaces as well. All of the other proposed amenities are similar between option number 1 and option number 2. I'll just point out that in addition to the parking itself, we are also contemplating additional trailhead amenities associated with both improvements or with both potential options. So those would include a new vault toilet restroom, which is located on the eastern edge of the parking area in both conceptual designs. We would also incorporate a trailhead seating area, as suggested by some members of the community in the online survey. And we would attempt, or we would not attempt, we believe we can accommodate a relatively large bicycle parking area and rack at the site. Traditionally, many of our preserves have smaller bike racks, which can traditionally accommodate up to 2 bicycles. Has been a district standard. In some cases, we're starting to implement larger bike racks to try to encourage more multimodal transportation, and we believe that we can accommodate up to 10 bicycle parking spaces at this particular trailhead. So that would be a significant increase from other traditional bike racks at other preserves. So with those two conceptual design options in mind, staff have also developed a moon chart that compares the two conceptual designs in a graphic representation and weighs the two designs in relation to some of the key original goals for the project. We do believe that both option number 1 and option number 2 do both inherently fulfill the vision plan goals established for the site in 2012, as well as the ADA transition plan goals established in 2019. So both options do achieve those fundamental goals for the project. Some of the key differences between the options are related to other aspects of the design. We believe that option number 2, again, with the one-way circulation route around the perimeter of the parking, is inherently superior in terms of ease of circulation and user experience. However, we believe that option number 1 is then superior in terms of parking availability and capacity, in that it provides 5 more parking spaces than option number 2. It's also therefore more cost effective in that we do believe that the two options have a relatively similar price because they are a relatively similar footprint. And so in terms of the investment that the district would be making, yielding more parking spaces for a similar investment would be more cost effective. So we believe that option number 1 is more cost effective. It is also more in tune with our natural resource protection guidelines and policies for the district, in that we anticipate there would be less tree removal required for option number 1. So with all of those goals and aspects of the project in mind, the P&R committee did ultimately recommend option number 1 for the board's consideration between the two options. And just as a brief summary, I believe we've touched on many of the other comments provided by the P&R at our meeting in April. But again, the P&R had asked us to clarify future preserve access at other locations, had asked us to clarify emergency vehicle access and continued need to provide access after the improvements are made, protection of aquatic resources on the site, the surfacing options that we described for the parking area, as well as the need to provide ample bicycle parking to encourage multimodal transportation. So with that, we will just end by summarizing where we would go from here should the board approve and accept one of the two conceptual design options for the site. So with acceptance of one of the two designs, we would then move into revisiting the technical studies that had been started for the site, doing a refresh to make sure that we have a full understanding of the existing conditions of the site and existing constraints and opportunities. We would then move into design development and environmental review, which would be followed by permitting, final design, and construction. This is our typical standard project delivery process with the district. And all this is just to say is that there would still be much work to do from here this evening, in that you would be accepting a conceptual design at this point, and then we would move forward with these subsequent phases. All of these phases in total, we believe that construction of the project would be likely to occur. We would be targeting the year 2028, so 2 years from now, in order to be able to implement the project. With that, I'll return to the recommendation from the general manager for you this evening, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have related to the presentation.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, as always, for a great presentation and for including so thoroughly the P&R's questions and considerations. So I know we need to hear from our Planning and Natural Resources Committee, but shall we turn to questions first, or would you rather? Do you have a preference?
It's entirely up to you, whatever you'd like.
Okay. Why don't we do questions first then? And I know Director Holman has one.
I do, and as the chair said, thank you very much for the presentation. I do have some questions having to do with the drawings, excuse me. Because this hasn't come up for a while, but the color differentiation is so minimal. It's really very, very hard for me at least to understand in all cases what's being proposed here. So that's one thing. So for instance, if I was looking at this, and this is like a silly thing, but if I was looking at this, I'm just going by the color key, it looks like everything surrounding the parking lot is going to be asphalt because that's what the color code is. But practical questions is like, what do the numbers 1, 8, and 10 say on attachment D, the preferred option? What do the numbers 1, 8, and 10 indicate?
Thank you for the question. I'll also say in brief that the engineering construction department is actively working on improving our graphic standards in order to make the project, the plans that we present to you as legible as possible. So we appreciate that feedback.
Thank you. I appreciate that too.
Yeah. The numbers represented on the plan shown on the screen here this evening represent the number of parking spaces within that particular bank of parking spaces in the overall lot. So the 10 represents the 10 spaces along the northern edge of the parking area. The 8 represents the 8 standard vehicle parking spaces on the southern side, and the 1 represents the 1 ADA van accessible parking space. So that is a total of 19 spaces at the site.
That helps clarify. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And then and again, I'm going to focus on attachment D here, and it'll help inform the other. On this graphic where it says new trailhead area, what is that surface? Is it stabilized aggregate? What is it?
Yes, that's what we're imagining at this point. Again, all of the surfacing would be finalized during the design development process and phase of the project. However, we do imagine that the trailhead area, which would be, again, the area surrounding and adjacent to the proposed restroom facility, that all of that would be with a stabilized aggregate, as we typically do at other preserves. An example of that is the granite-crete product that we've used at other open space preserves. And the reason for that is it provides a natural aesthetic. However, it is the firm, stable, slip-resistant surface that is required by ADA code for ADA paths of travel. The requirement is not only for the ADA parking, but then to have an ADA accessible path of travel to and from the restroom facility.
Okay. And so then on the far right-hand side, toward the bottom of the lot, the vehicle turnaround and trail patrol access, is that surface is?
That would all be, so the brown shaded color on this map, all of the parking stalls and the drive aisles within, all of that area would be proposed to be in gravel, including the vehicular turnaround area. That's just designating striping that would be a no parking area, so that would be free of cars to allow for the vehicular turnaround.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that. And then I did have another question. Oh, yes, a question / I guess it's sort of a question, but maybe a comment. The right-of-way improvements, it says asphalt. I've been thinking about this because of something else that came to us really recently too, is the use of asphalt as opposed to concrete, because concrete, you think about the afterlife. So concrete's recyclable. I don't know that asphalt is. Concrete can be permeable. I don't know that asphalt can be. So why asphalt as opposed to a tintable, recyclable, permeable concrete?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, the final surfacing could definitely be, all of those options could be considered during the design development process. I think we imagined asphalt as being relatively cost effective, but stable surface to handle the wear and tear of that driveway apron adjacent to the road. It would also match the surfacing of the roadway itself, obviously. However, we could consider the trade-offs of potentially considering a concrete surfacing of that driveway apron itself. I think the main goal there would be to not have, the potential gravel area of the parking lot directly interfacing with Kennedy Road itself. We wouldn't want to be pulling gravel into the roadway that could create, maintenance issues, safety issues along the roadway itself. So this apron not only provides more of a firm surface to handle the wear and tear, but it also provides some separation between the gravel surfacing area and the adjacent city roadway.
Yeah, no, I understand about the apron. I just kind of the surfacing of it.
Yeah.
And I understand you're going to determine that, but I just want to put it out there that other consideration.
Yeah, we appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions down here? Yes, Director McNiven.
Before you started this project, did we hear from the neighbors? Have you heard any comments about the parking along top of the hill road?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so
Could you repeat the question, please?
Yes. So the question was related to our conversations with neighbors adjacent to the property. We have had several conversations with adjacent neighbors. I believe a group of 15 plus neighbors did attend the open house together that we had on the site. So we've had the opportunity to have direct communications and conversations with the neighbors to the property, and certainly heard that a central concern of the adjacent neighbors has been the overflow parking, particularly along top of the hill road, which extends to the north on the opposite side of Kennedy Road. And that as soon as the few spaces that are currently available at the Kennedy trailhead fill up, which is nearly immediately on a weekend in particular, that there is overflow parking on top of the hill road. And so what we did discuss at the open house and in subsequent conversations is that we do believe that the projects, the conceptual designs that are presented to you this evening, they do have the potential to help alleviate overflow parking on top of the hill road. We do not believe and we do not claim that they will solve for overflow parking along top of the hill road, but certainly by providing close to the maximum observed overflow parking in our traffic study, we do believe that there is some amount of alleviation of that issue, particularly in non-peak hours. We would hope that we could capture the majority of visitors to the site parking on district property as opposed to across the road. You're welcome.
Any other questions on this side? Nope. Thank you, Margaret. Director Ripple. Director Gleason.
I'll go last.
Okay. Director Gleason.
Sorry if I missed this, but the parking study that was done was, can you remind me when that was and how many times were those numbers measured?
Yeah, so the parking study that was conducted was in 2021, at the time that we were just initially envisioning the more modest improvements at the site, so the ADA parking and the new restroom facility. So that did occur in 2021. As we revisit, if the board accepts one of the two options and we move forward this evening, we could certainly revisit those traffic numbers in an up-to-date study to confirm the parking capacities that were observed at the time. But again, the maximum parking capacity or parking demand that was observed at the time was up to 20 spaces on a weekend.
And was that a single weekend or was it multiple weekends?
That was, I believe that the data that they collected was in it was a weekend in April of 2021, and it was selected as a typical weekend during kind of peak use spring, summer timeframe, I believe. So it was a single time of collection at the site.
Okay. Yeah. Just based on my observations, I think if you measured a bunch of weekends, you would probably find some weekends that go above that.
Sure. Yeah.
But I don't think it's really out of the ordinary. So.
I appreciate that. And again, in the context of what we believe we're able to do with this project, again, it's the hope is to alleviate some of the overflow parking, but not to solve for it. So even if we were to do additional traffic studies and see that the maximum number may be higher than what was documented in 2021, that may very well be the case. However, the designs that we're presenting to you this evening are essentially maxed out in terms of their capacity. So it's not like we could potentially increase capacity further from what you're seeing this evening.
Could you show option 2 again?
Yes.
I was a little confused about what path, how do you park in that ADA space?
So that would be a parallel ADA parking space. So it would require a bit of maneuvering. We could massage the radii into and out of that particular parking spot in order to make it more of a drive-in kind of space. But it would require a parallel parking configuration.
Okay, so you pull in past it and then you back
Correct.
in.
Correct.
Okay, good. Thanks. A question about bike racks. So I think I've seen them be pretty effective at Rancho San Antonio, but for example, at Bear Creek, I've used the bike rack there, but I don't think I've ever seen anybody else using it. So do we have examples where we're starting to see more usage of the bike racks in places other than Rancho?
That's a great question. I'm not aware of any data at our other preserves in terms of demand and actual usage of our bike facilities. I did note that in the traffic study in 2021, the sensors that were used to capture vehicular data, they weren't sensitive enough to pick up the numbers of bicycles that were coming to and from the site and along Kennedy Road. But we could, again, if we do a refresh, we could potentially try to capture some of that data in order to right size the biking facility at this site.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh, you said that the neighbors, one of the points on the neighbor feedback was install signage on trail conditions. Could you expand a little more on what they were saying there?
Sure. Yeah, I think that discussion was really focused on the fact that wanting to make sure that there's an awareness that beyond this parking area and this access point to the preserve, that the Kennedy Trail itself does become relatively rugged relatively quickly after you leave this particular site. Sierra Azul, as I'm sure you all know, is a lot of the Sierra Azul Preserve is hot, open chaparral type community, and can certainly be challenging versus other preserves. So there was a lot of discussion with the community about the need to provide ADA facilities at this site, and we did emphasize that ADA is required by law. As a public agency, we have to provide ADA at all of our facilities, even if it's just to come and enjoy the trailhead itself and the natural environment surrounding the trailhead itself. But just wanting to raise awareness of visitors that beyond the trailhead, that it does become rugged. We did emphasize that it's up to every user based upon their ability to decide how far and wide to venture into our open space preserves. But the suggestion was to have some additional signage to raise awareness.
Okay, thank you. And if we're using gravel in the parking lot, do we have choices on what coloring to use?
Certainly, yeah. The aggregate could be sourced from a variety of local quarries to try to zero in on a particular shade, ideally an earth tone that would sort of match the existing kind of color palette and tonality of the site itself. When you go out there, if you were out there today, all of the grass is dry and browning and yellow, and so we would certainly imagining trying to compose a color palette for all of the improvements that would be compatible with those existing conditions.
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay, Director Riffle.
Great. Thank you, Mark, and really appreciate your presentations. I always look forward to them. They're always thorough and very professional, so thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question, and I probably ask this every time we talk about parking lot surface, of how do we delineate, or would we delineate the parking stalls or parking envelope? Because that's going to be important, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. As we know from experience at Fremont Older and other preserves, unmarked parking stalls themselves can create challenges in terms of user experience and knowing how far to space your vehicle from the next vehicle within a parking area. So what we've imagined here is if we do end up doing gravel surfacing, one key way that we've effectively been able to do that. An example being up at the Jocks Ridge parking area within Sierra Azul is via the use of wheel stops at the end of each individual parking stall. While those traditionally don't go the full width of a parking stall, they do provide a visual indication as to where each individual vehicle should be pulling into and out of a stall. So that may end up being a simple way to be able to do that. There are other devices and opportunities out there where you can actually delineate within the gravel surfacing itself. But all in all, I think we're after simplicity here. We're after a light touch. We're after that rustic aesthetic. So that may be a simple way to do it.
Okay. And then again, a parking lot surface question. This lot is very close to neighbors, and are we at all concerned about dust? Or is the idea that, gosh, not too much speed would be, so I don't think dust is going to be an issue?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. I think obviously we would post, that there would be very low posted speeds within the parking area. And I do think that we do have to continue to evaluate if we do use a gravel surfacing. We've heard from the community there's a desire for that. We certainly think that should be feasible to do. But one thing that we have to finesse during the design development process will be the level of compaction that will be necessary on the gravel surfacing to make it easy enough to maintain, make it drivable without significant issues of wear and tear over time. And so there's the potential to not only compose the mix of aggregate and the amount of fines, et cetera, in there to try to control dust, but also the amount of compaction that we do could help to limit the potential for dust associated with the parking area.
And Mark, I think Brad Pennington would like to make a comment on this as well.
Great. Thank you, Brad.
You there, Brad? Yep, we can hear you.
So my video's here. Sorry. Hello, Area Superintendent for Foothills Preserves. With the gravel, I do want to bring up the dust. And Mark's made good points of how we can reduce it, but it is right next to a very outspoken neighbor, Dr. Holly. So it could be a problem. And every gravel lot we have in the district invites donut spinning. So,
It's going to be my next question.
Yes, in this area, we battle with 16-year-olds who get great cars in this area. It's a very fluent area, and they go up there and they love to see what their cars can do. We actually had to install extra wheel stops and barriers up at the top of to stop it. So when we get gravel lots like this just invites it, and this is so much closer to the houses, so that could really cause a dust storm. Not to mention throwing rocks on other cars that might be in the parking lot when they do this.
Mm-hmm.
So it is, it's a great aesthetically, it looks more rural and stuff, and fits our design guidelines, but in the end, it could cause a lot more damage and a lot more maintenance just by inviting that. And it's hard to do barriers to donut spinning in gravel lots because you're really stuck with trying to mound up some dirt or like bars across it that just erode away.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you, Brad. Questions?
Yeah, just one more. Thank you, Brad. That's exactly the question I was going to ask. It also has something to do with the gate and the access. And Mark, I think I see it on the drawing, but could you point out where the gate would be?
Yes, thank you. And that actually isn't specifically called out on these plans, but is certainly a project design element that we would plan to incorporate into both option 1 and option 2. And that would be a new automatic gate along at a location to be determined and informed by the traffic study, right, but at a location within the proposed driveway apron that what is currently shown as asphalt,
right,
driveway apron, we would have a double leaf automatic gate on both sides, entry and exit aisles, of the driveway, and that that gate would be automatically closed according to our preserve hours, which I believe in this case and in all cases is traditionally a half an hour after sunset. Then this parking area would be closed to prevent vehicular access after hours into the preserve, to try to alleviate some of those concerns that we heard from the neighbors as well.
Right. Okay. And then last question, sorry. I'm always amazed that a gravel lot actually will have to have some water or bioretention,
Right.
whereas a permeable, I guess permeable concrete, in fact, would not.
Correct.
Which seems counterintuitive, but because that's another factor I think that we need to think about, as we're thinking about surface.
Yes, thank you. It definitely is, and that's what I was starting to allude to in that level of compaction, discussion, is that compacted gravel is unfortunately considered an impervious surface,
right,
according to the county's stormwater guidelines, and would either require bioretention,
right,
if we were to utilize compacted gravel, just as we would have to do if it was a traditional asphalt parking lot.
Right.
We do believe we can potentially accommodate bioretention here.
Right.
Could be incorporated potentially into a way to buffer
right,
the effects of the parking lot on the adjacent drainage. There is the potential to also consider like permeable surfacing, such as permeable asphalt, permeable concrete. However, there are potential limitations here on this particular site in terms of soil types. These are expansive soils. And so whatever we have to do, we would have to be sensitive to the subgrade beneath our parking facilities,
Okay.
and whether or not they could accommodate
Okay.
that.
And we're not deciding on
Correct.
surfacing tonight, right?
Correct.
It's just,
Right. And again, this is our best estimate of what may be feasible at the site, at the concept level, and then we would flesh out all these details during the design development process.
Thank you. Thanks so much. And I'm prepared to give the PNR comments whenever you would like.
All right, I think we have one more question from Director Sear.
Wasn't a question. Well, it was a question, but Director Riffle beat me to it. I was interested in whether or not swales or runoff would be incorporated in the design and structure. So,
yes, and thank you for that.
Echo the other board members' comments on thanking you and the staff for setting this up. And it's merely 2 or 3 years to get to here. And so, no, thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Good, thank you. And now a report from one more question, sorry.
Thank you. So on option 2, there are 2 kind of amorphous shapes and then one little sort of hybridized triangle that, for instance, the one amorphous shape I'm referring to is at the front and to the right of the white colored vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
That color doesn't seem to be aligned with anything. What are you envisioning there? What is that?
Thank you.
What are those indications?
Yeah, so those would be essentially islands within the parking area that would potentially be revegetated. Either those islands could potentially be utilized for bioretention, should it be needed for the site, or they could simply be reseeded with native seed in order to help landscape the area and sort of blend the parking area back into the natural environment. They're required by design. The reason that they're shown there is because of the required turning radii associated with the parking stalls and drive aisles. Essentially, it's leftover space that can't be utilized for additional parking, so it becomes opportunity for landscaping within the parking area.
I don't, though, on option 1, I don't see indication of where bioswales might be.
Correct. Yeah, we haven't specified there, but what we would certainly imagine, we haven't done a formal grading plan for the site yet, but what we do imagine is that we would mimic the existing topography and drainage pattern of the existing site, which drains from the west to the east. So we would have a gentle slope on the parking area from west to east, and then we would imagine that bioretention, should it be required, would likely be located on the eastern side of the site because that's where the water would drain to across the parking area.
Okay, that's very helpful. And then lastly, while I'm at it here, so like the automatic gate, presumably would that stop the wheelies and all that sort of thing that goes on?
Certainly after hours, it would prevent vehicles from entering into the parking area. And then in terms of, the potential for donuts that Brad was describing, I do think that may lend itself to option number one. Does not have the perimeter one-way circulation route, which may be highly conducive to that type of behavior, versus this dead-end configuration. If there are a number of cars in the parking lot, could inherently help to limit the potential for that behavior.
Appreciate your answers. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Director Kishimoto.
Yes. Thank you. Well, first of all, I wanted to apologize for having missed the PNR and thank our president for stepping in.
My pleasure.
And I think most of my questions got answered, but I assume there's no lighting at all. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, we have not envisioned any lighting associated with the project today.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, very good. And now we will hear from the chair of the PNR, Planning and Natural Resources Committee, Director Riffle.
Great. So the PNR, as alluded, is Director Kishimoto, Director Sear, and myself. And yes, thank you, Director Christine Tucker for pinch hitting for Director Kishimoto. So all the members, we did have a chance to visit the site. And I want to thank Scott for giving us Sunday, I think, for at least two of us. I'm not sure when he did the third, but I found it to be very helpful and really appreciated the tour. So the PNR, as I think was very well captured in the minutes and the notes in the report, but the PNR preferred by a vote of 2-1 the option one, which was allowed more parking, less tree removal, more cost effective in terms of dollars per parking space. I think was kind of, if I could capture the kind of the vote. As we recommended, the committee, I'm really hoping the other directors had a chance to get out to the site, because boy, it just can't, the opportunity to be actually out there really makes a big difference. So hopefully people did have a chance to get out there. I do want to say though that both options 1 and 2 we think fulfills the promise that we made in our Measure AA document. Overall, I think both options are viable options, but I've told you what the committee was leaning towards. So with that, I'll open it up to Director Sear, Director Director Christine Tucker, if you want to add any comments.
I appreciate it very much, being able to be on site. It makes a huge difference. The sketches and all the map work and so forth is very, very thorough. It's not quite the same as being on the ground. And get much different and more complete sense of it. So very much appreciated that, and thought there I could do my thinking much more clearly having seen the site. I've got a couple of comments when we get to that point.
All right, thank you, Director Sear. I think you both have captured my thoughts well with this. It's I think both parking lots have value, the way they're laid out, but I do have a preference for one simply because it does provide a little bit more parking, fewer trees, and felt like might keep people moving a little bit more slowly through the lot than the circular the roundabout circulation pattern. So those are my comments, and maybe now we'll turn to see if there are any public comments before we take director comments.
I do not have any.
Okay, so over to you all. What's your preference? We'll take a motion, a thought. Director McNiven,
Option 1.
are you making a motion?
Do you want me to?
Unless there's further.
Unless there's going to be more discussion. I mean, to me, it's just plain old obvious that we want
Okay.
cut and dry.
Yeah, okay, let's hear from everybody and see.
Yeah.
An option 1. Anybody else want to weigh in with a yes, Director Gleason?
I also prefer option 1.
Okay.
And yeah, I've been to Kennedy Trailhead many times. I think the And I usually bike there, but occasionally I go there to walk a dog. And on those occasions, I will park typically on top of the hill road because I can't get a parking space. And I feel awkward about doing it.
Yeah.
So I feel like this is a good improvement. And I was also really glad to see that, I was briefly at that open house, and I was a little bit confused about the feedback that was coming from the neighborhood, but I was very glad to see that the general outreach really reinforced that lots and lots of people do see this parking issue and they would like to address it. And that seems very consistent with, as you said, the original feedback that went into putting the project there in the first place. So yeah, I'm very confident in this. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Director Sear.
Yes, I just wanted to say that my original sense on committee, looking at these two options, was favoring option 2 for the circulation capability. As I reflected on it, I think option 1 is superior, as well as all the things that have been mentioned already. That it is a better solution, and forward we go. So if it's time enough, there's other people.
Maybe we'll hear from everybody. So hold that thought.
Yeah, I think it's as indicated before. I think option 1 is best fulfills what I think we have been asked to do as a district, and I think the feedback from the neighbors. And I know that we don't have any neighbors here tonight with us in person, but I have a feeling we probably have some online, and I really want to thank the neighbors and the community and the users for being for sharing their thoughts with us and staff for giving them the opportunity to do that. So I think for a lot of the reasons that were stated tonight, I'm going to go with option 1. And one of the reasons is because as a 17-year-old, I definitely did my share of donuts, and option 2 would have been really juicy. So yeah, I'm gonna personal experience go with option 1.
All right. Director Kishimoto.
Yes, I think for multiple reasons, option 1.
Okay.
I was a little flippant before, but I really think this is fulfilling a need. I read one of the comments that, well, we don't want parking on top of the hill road. If we can help it. And it's not a safety issue getting in and out of that driveway. So I think it's really a good project. And option 1 is, I was just in Town and Country. There's no way to do these. You just have to be careful when you've got restricted parking.
However, if you're at Town and Country, you can do wheelies inside the Trader Joe's there. I'm also option 1 for a variety of reasons that we've spoken about, and I want to know if Kurt was doing his wheelies in a car or on horseback.
All right. Well, I think we might not even need a vote, but let's go for it anyway. And I think I heard a motion from Director McNiven.
I'll give you a motion to go for option 1.
All right. And a second from Director Sear. And a roll call, please.
Director Gleason?
Yes.
Director Sear?
Yes.
Director Riffle?
Yes.
President Christine Tucker?
Yes.
Director Holman?
Yes.
Director Kishimoto?
Yes.
Director McNiven? Yes. Thank you. The motion passes 7-0 for option 1.
Okay, very good. Thank you all.
Great.
Really,
Thank you very
so
much.
much. And to Aiden as well. Thank you. Appreciated your
Thank
work
you for
as
the
well.
feedback.
Okay. So that ends our special meeting. And wow, we have a whole 50 minutes. There's lots of pizza. All right, we'll see you back at 7 o'clock. Evening and welcome to this regular meeting of the Midpeninsula Regional Open Space District. My name is Zoe Kirstine Tucker. I'm president of the board of directors. This meeting is now called to order and it is 7 o'clock p.m. Members of the public can attend and participate in the meeting in person or via Zoom. Instructions for submitting public comment are available on the meeting agenda. So if we may please have a roll call.
Director Gleason?
Here.
Director Sear?
Here.
Director Riffle?
Here.
President Christine Tucker?
Here.
Director Holman?
Here.
Director Kishimoto?
Here. Director McNiven. Here. Thank you, all present.
All right, thank you. And are there any comments from members of the public on matters within the jurisdiction of the district that are not on the agenda?
We do not have any. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Well, I want to welcome you all. It's nice to see all these smiling faces this evening. This is a big meeting, lots to accomplish tonight, a couple of really meaty, weighty reports. So let us move on quickly here. Can I have a motion to adopt the meeting agenda?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Director Sear, a second from Director Gleason. Yes, and a roll call, please.
Director Gleason.
Yes.
Director Sear.
Yes.
Director Ripple.
Yes.
President Christine Tucker.
Yes.
Director Holman.
Yes.
Director Kishimoto.
Yes.
Director McNiven.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 7-0.
All right, thank you. All right, we have two informational memoranda on our agenda this evening. Excellent, both of them. Wondering if there are any questions or any comments there. Nope, seeing none. Director McNiven, did you have something?
On the Little Butano Creek, is that? Yeah.
That was one of the, yes, do you have a question?
Hasn't that project been done by the on route down farm? The Little Butano.
Part of it has, but I
It's
think
just this is another lake, another pond.
we'll hear from
Because
the
there's a pond
experts.
just being put in.
David Liefert, Senior Resource Management Specialist. Good evening. So you're referring to the phase 1 of the proposed project that was described in the FYI is the pond. And then phase 2 is the creek enhancements and fisheries improvements. Were you referring to the pond?
I thought I saw a pond there that was just built recently.
Not on Root Down Farms. Just downstream, there's a large construction project completed last year on Cloverdale Ranch Preserve. And that was for in-stream and floodplain enhancements, and also addressing a fish passage barrier, opening up anadromy upstream and into Little Butano Creek as it passes along the Root Down Farms property. And so now that that's open for anadromy, there's all this other opportunity for additional enhancements for fisheries improvements. And that's what the RCD's project hopes to accomplish. And that's what this funding is for.
I just didn't quite understand it. So there's going to be two ponds, one on Cloverdale and one on...
No, just a single pond associated with the proposed project led by the RCD. And that pond is not going to be on Cloverdale Ranch. That's just on the Root Down Farms property owned by Post.
Yeah, I misunderstood.
No problem. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you, David. Seeing no other questions, then we will move on to our consent calendar. We have 8 items on the consent calendar this evening. Does any member of the board wish to have an item pulled from the consent calendar? No. Are there any public comment?
We do not have any.
Okay, then can I have, may I please have a motion to adopt the consent calendar?
So moved.
I have a motion from Director Ripple and a second from Director Sear, I believe. Although, a roll call, please.
Director Gleason.
Yes.
Director Sear.
Yes.
Director Ripple.
Yes.
President Christine Tucker.
Yes.
Director Holman.
Yes.
Director Kishimoto.
Yes.
Director McNiven.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 7-0.
All right, thank you. So we'll move now to our board business item number 9, which is the first of our public hearings this evening, and that is our public hearing and report on vacancies and recruitment and retention efforts. Rebecca. Two is definitely better than one.
Hi, I'm Candace Bez. I am the HR manager, and with me is
Rebecca Wolf, HR supervisor.
Okay, and this evening we're here to talk about the status of our vacancies in recruitment and retention efforts, as we have to report out annually according to law. Do you want to start off with it? Yeah. Basically, we are charged with holding a public hearing to comply with legal obligations and reports of vacancies according to a law that was effective as of January of 2025. We did this last year with you all. And so we're doing this. No action on your report is required. You're just here to listen. And we're going to tell you what happened. And this overview, again, it's according to law AB 2561, will give you vacancy information. We'll talk about recruitment information. We'll talk about retention information and all of that. And then our efforts and strategies around recruitment and retention.
And Rebecca, would you like us to hold questions till the end?
Not necessarily. If you have them, you can interrupt me and ask them if you'd like.
Okay, very good.
Okay. So I'm going to give you a brief overview of AB 2561 before we go into the numbers. And it's important to note that the information reported tonight is specific to comply with this bill and is different than the recruitment and retention data that HR reports to the general manager on a fiscal year basis. So as Candace mentioned, AB 2561 became effective on January 1st, 2025, and we first presented to you last year around this time. And as a basis for this new law, the California legislature determined that vacancies are a widespread and significant problem in the public sector. And thus, this law requires public agencies to present during a public hearing before the board at least once per fiscal year the status of vacancies, recruitment, and retention efforts, and any necessary changes to recruitment procedures that may lead to obstacles in the recruitment process. Additionally, if the number of job vacancies within a single recognized employee organization or bargaining unit meets or exceeds 20% of the total number of authorized positions, there are additional reporting requirements that must be presented if the employee organization makes the request of the district to do so. So again, the intent of this bill is to focus on vacancies due to the inefficiencies they create. Thus, there are different calculations and metrics for this specific purpose. Since the law does not specify a time frame for measuring vacancy rates and to ensure consistency year over year, the district reports this data as a one-day snapshot as of December 31st of each year. So tonight we'll present December 31st of 2025. In contrast, the overall turnover rate that is reported to the general manager at the end of the fiscal year reflects staff changes over the entire fiscal year, capturing the total number of departures and replacements. While turnover rates offer a broader view of workplace stability, vacancy rates serve as a focus indicator of staffing levels at a specific moment in time. So on this slide, you'll see our vacancy information as of December 31st, 2025. Vacancies can be created when newly positions are added to the budget, when there is an internal movement, such as promotions or transfers, or when an employee leaves the organization, including voluntary and involuntary separations and retirements. So on this slide, you will see the district-wide totals also broken out by the employee groups. Neither FEA nor POA reached the 20% vacancy threshold. The district vacancy rate as of December 31st, 2025 was 7.72%. So I'll continue on to share some recruitment information. So on this slide, the total number of vacancies filled were 29, slightly down from 33 last year or from 2024. But 2024 had significantly more vacancies at 49 compared to 2025 at 28 due to the positions added to the budget. That was the big contributor of vacancies last time. And we had 29 that were filled just by open recruitments. We did not have any internal closed promotional opportunities this year. There were 28 vacancies created in calendar year 2025, again down from 49 in 2024. 5 were created from newly budgeted positions. 9 were from internal promotions. Again, very good number to see that our employees are promoting and moving around. And 2 from internal transfers. Additionally, we had 4 retirements, 2 involuntary separations, and 6 voluntary separations, and that brought the annual staffing turnover rate based on these metrics to 2.72%. Candace?
Okay, so let's see, what do I want to say here? The general information about hiring. The district reviewed applicable policies and procedures and recruitment activities and identified no real potential obstacles to our hiring processes. No changes are recommended to our processes at this time, which you're seeing on the slide. We have 9 HR staff, fabulous HR staff members who are dedicated, and 3 of which are dedicated to recruiting. And we filled 29 vacancies in 2025, and that's not including our interns and seasonals, which we have a very robust internship program, as you all know, and the seasonals that's popping too. A lot of great seasonals coming forth. So district employs various recruitment strategies. We've posted vacancies on our website. We have a recruitment portal, which we're using, which is CalOps, which we've been using historically. We go to job boards specific to this jobs that we're looking at. We advertise open positions on district social media platforms, which Public Affairs has helped us take that to a whole different level with our media blitz. The district has been successful in filling positions, including open space technician and ranger, and from the pipeline of viable candidates employed by the district as seasonal employees. So our seasonal tactics to get seasonals in is bringing that pipeline through on the field. Also, a few positions within the administrative offices have been filled by individuals who have completed internships with the district. So in 2025, the board approved a new salary schedule based on the board appointee changes to the compensation philosophy, as you all remember. And we hosted an awesome event, which was the Career Fair, March of 2026. Was it this month? Mm-hmm. Okay, I thought it was in May. Anyway, all this is so fast. And promoted conservation careers and connected with job seekers. The bottom line is our general manager was hoping for 100 people. And guess how many people came? 800 people. And staff really, everybody, I got to say, all the departments were there full force. And everybody worked really hard. So it wasn't just HR, it was a whole organizational uplift. So it was a great event. And right now we're in the process of doing a RFPQ, looking for a consultant to continue to do our compensation and classification work. We're working with Gallagher right now. We sent our RFPQ. We're going through the process right now of redoing that work again, looking at who, doing the proper procedure to identify who would be doing the consultant doing this work. Part of our work also includes looking at career ladders. That was one of the things that you charged us to do, and we are going to be looking at that. And we're constantly will be reviewing our compensation, looking at the market for various departments as needed, and working through the whole agency as needed. And this work is also to support succession planning, strengthen employee retention and engagement. So that's our plan. We're sticking to it. And that's it. Sweet and simple. We were charged we have to do this by law. We're holding a public hearing. It's important for you to note that what Rebecca said, that this reporting that we're doing is just a snapshot, December 31st of 2025. The report that the general manager will bring you later will reflect our fiscal year and will give you much more detail. And so, but in both cases, we're in a good place. So no formal board action is required, just to hear us give this information.
All right, thank you both. It's always a pleasure to get this snapshot and to feel like the district's healthy and, clicking along at a good pace. I'm wondering if my colleagues have any questions for Candace or Rebecca this evening. Yes, Director Gleason.
Yeah, thank you very much for this and for all of your good work. Are you seeing any direct impact from the career fair in current recruiting?
I would say yes. We are just in the middle of doing or working on our ranger recruitment, and we saw a uptick of, I think, qualified candidates, I'll say. Fingers crossed. I'm not going to say anything more than that, but I'm just hopeful because I don't want to jinx it. But in other recruitments as well, we've seen internships across the board. We've seen more applications. Now, there's a lot of other things happening too. There's things happening in the labor market, but I will say there have people reportedly said to us, we heard about this from the career fair, and I applied because of that. So yes, yeah.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Other questions?
Anybody else? Yes, Director Kishimoto.
So, well, thank you for the report. And I think this is the second time we've had this, but I was just trying to understand the impetus behind the bill. I mean, is it that there were some agencies that weren't filling their vacancies?
Yeah, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, there's agencies, probably the counties, cities that have many more vacancies than we do, and they sit there, they don't get filled, and it just creates this tremendous burden on the rest of the staff in the organization. And so that was the impetus to bring forward the bill so that we as public agencies would share this information publicly and also alert the labor groups if it reached a certain threshold to then hopefully come up with ideas to get past those high vacancy rates.
I see. So either fill them, or the board has to take action to take the posts away.
Or ask, why aren't we? What's going on? What do we need to change? Come up with a different strategy.
Okay.
For the most part, we're pretty quick. If we have an opening, we're pretty quick at trying to, or we're ahead of it. Like we run deep. Right. So we kind of keep our feelers out to, if we anticipate something's going on, we try to get ahead of it.
Okay.
And the other thing is that we did let the representative groups know, which we are supposed to do, that we were coming to you. And if they wanted to say anything, they had opportunity to. And I'm not seeing, no one said that they wanted to. So that's a good sign.
Oh, good. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
Okay. Anybody else? I actually had a couple questions. With the seasonals and the internships being so successful, and with all the news about people being displaced by AI and jobs, I'm wondering whether there's anything that could be done to continue to ramp up the seasonals and interns that we bring into the district to continue to.
Well, we are looking at, one, our internship program is really growing. And other departments have asked for, interns. We're looking at doing maybe a summer intern. We're exploring what that would look like, a more abbreviated time frame for maybe people younger in their career, like in college. So we're looking at different ways to get that, make that more robust. I call July when we love bomb our interns. We have a bunch of programs internally that we work with where the interns come, they meet with senior staff, they meet with regular staff, they get more involved and immersed in the goings on of the district so they know who we are. And we feed them, which they love, and we teach them too about who we are. So it's not just a feeding; we don't just feed people, and we work with the Next Gen, which is the countywide initiative around interns, because throughout the counties, both Santa Clara and San Mateo, we work to do different programs to support interns and give them career information and how to get them plugged into public sector jobs. So we work really closely with them. Matter of fact, I'm going to be presenting with the HR director from VTA around that in that event, one of those events in July. So we're doing a lot internally and externally to help get the word out about our own internships, and the various department managers and supervisors who oversee interns are really working hard to make them have really good experiences. And we've gotten a lot of reports back from them that they have gotten jobs. One manager was telling me someone contacted her and said, "Thank you. I just went, I'm looking, I want to have you as a reference. I'm looking for other jobs because I haven't found any place like Midpen so far in my career, but you've helped me to have a good flight path." So we have a lot of reports like that. So
thank you. And just to echo Director Gleason, I have heard so many people rave about the conservation fair. And the question that always comes up is, when are you doing another one? So just put it out there. I know it was a huge, heavy lift, and but it was really popular and people loved it. So
we did that. We hosted it. We did all the work, and our partners really want to help us. So we're trying to figure out how to leverage our partnerships. We have 30 or more partners who and we did a survey of our partners as well, and they were like 100% like thrilled with it. So, and thrilled not just like, oh, we had fun, but we want to do this more. They saw it as valuable, and we got good feedback from them. So we're going to be now. Next year we have a lot of other things going on, but we're trying to lay the foundation of how we can get our partners to work with us, so that we can do it in probably a bigger venue, and probably more breakout sessions where they can learn more about careers in conservation. More was asked because we did a survey of also the participants, and they wanted just more. Yeah. So, and we want to do that. We want more help from our partners. So, yeah.
Terrific. All right. Thank you. Any other questions? If not, we will open the public hearing and take any public comment.
I do not have any comments virtually or in person for the public hearing.
Well, then we will close the public hearing. And there is no vote required. Is there any further discussion on this item? Yeah. Thank you. Your enthusiasm is so infectious. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
All right.
Great numbers.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, speaking of numbers, we'll move now to board, but that was Karen, Director Holman. Board business item number 10, and this is our public hearing on the proposed fiscal year 2026-27 budget, the 3-year capital improvement and action plan. Public hearing. Stefan.
Do I go into presentation mode first? Log in or plug in? Okay.
Okay.
I got it.
Okay.
I'm not completely illiterate, but I appreciate the notion of trying to save me here. Good evening, Stefan Jaskelak, CFO. Just like I did at the committee meeting, before I dive into the FY27 budget, let me take a moment to thank everyone that input into this wonderful document. Budget and Finance Manager Rafaela, and also the Budget Supervisor Ellie, and we have the analysts Jordan and Sam. Of course, the entire management team backed up by various management analysts, project managers, etc. And of course, not to forget the GM and the AGMs. And I think they're also ready to bail me out in case I get stuck or stumped by one of your questions. So with all that said, this is the public hearing on the proposed budget and action plan for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2027.
And before you start, Stefan, you'll let us know when you want to break for questions, or do you want questions?
Ask them as they come up.
Okay, popcorn
Yes.
style. All
Yep.
right.
I see Brian's already anticipating me getting stumped. I appreciate that. And Susanna is a little bit under the weather, but she's the voice from the sky today. Tonight's general manager's recommendations, first of all, is to hold a public hearing to review the proposed fiscal year 2026-27 budget and fiscal year 2026-27 through fiscal year 28-29 capital improvement and action plan as recommended by the Action Plan and Budget Committee. The second part is to direct either A, the general manager to present the proposed FY27 budget and action plan to the board of directors for adoption at the regular meeting on June 24th, 2026, so that'll be in 2 weeks. Or B, return the proposed FY27 budget and action plan along with proposed changes to the Action Plan and Budget Committee for further consideration prior to the general manager bringing the item to the board of directors for adoption at a June regular meeting, which would also be June 24th. So tonight we'll look at the budget development timeline and very briefly the retreat recaps. And then we'll dive into the FY27 budget overview, revenues and expenses. We will also take a brief look at the long-range financial plan. That's a multi-year, extrapolating it forward. Also looking at personnel and department budgets. And then we'll have some time for the CUP, the Capital Improvement and Action Plan, the overview, and the 4 program area summaries. So the timeline, this hasn't changed much in the last decade, or maybe even longer than that. It's a tried and true concept that we have, and I've had a lot of compliments on it. We start in December with the board strategic planning retreat, where the strategic goals and objectives are established for the coming year. Then we go and look at the preliminary budget and the CUP preparation, January, February. We come back to the board in March for the project prioritization retreat. Then we sharpen our pencils as staff and prepare the budget and action plan. In May, we have 2 ABC meetings, action plan and budget committee meetings. And then brings us to today for the public hearing, and then hopefully 2 weeks from now, the budget adoption. Strategic planning recap, that was back in December of last year. We reviewed, of course, the environmental scan results. We do that annually, where we poll our different department managers as to what's changing and what is the outlook. The board adopted a new strategic plan, or updates really, including more commitment to Measure AA, because we also have some slowing tax revenue growth. So we want to really focus and double down on Measure AA. Also looking at more mission clarity and ongoing future priorities, and looking at capacity for new initiatives with internal and external partners. The board also received a progress update on Measure AA, POSM refresh report on partnerships, and also reaffirmed the big rocks. Then in March, fast forward, we looked at the project prioritization and the preliminary 3-year CUP. We reviewed the FY27 big rocks list, guided any future or any further refinements, any kind of scopes for projects, budgets, schedules that we presented, including discussion about the Spring Ridge Trail Alignment Project that could be evaluated for inclusion for next year's FY28 budget development cycle. And that basically gave us our marching orders to put the numbers to paper and develop the budget for you. And the way it shakes out is our revenues are coming in at 106.1 million. That's revenues plus other funding sources. And our expenditures at 106 million. And that gives us a change of fund balance that's basically a rounding error of less than $50,000. But I think the important takeaway in this slide is that the budget is balanced. The revenues, they break down as follows. We have property tax, that's 84% of our revenue. We are projecting 8% grants revenue. Interest income is 5%, and then we have an other category of 3%. So all of this also includes internal fund transfers. It includes Measure AA bond funding. And we are also putting $6.3 million in the budget to transfer into Committee for Infrastructure, and that is the reserve for the Skyline Field Office and the new Coast Field Office to pay for the construction of those 2 offices. This provides a lot more detail on the revenue and other funding sources. The top line, well, it's divvied up over the 5 different funds. So on the top line, you'll see tax revenues, property tax revenues. Most of it is in the general fund. That is $77.5 million. You'll also see $7.5 million in the debt service fund, and that is the levy to pay for Measure AA bonds. So our total tax revenue is 85 million. On the grant side, we have almost $1 million in general fund and 7.3 million projected for Measure AA, a total of 8.2 million. You see interest income, we have quite a bit in the general fund, north of 4 million. A little bit in Hawthorne's, that is the endowment, that is about 1.8 million endowment. So we are projecting 45,000 of revenue, interest revenue there. Measure AA capital, we have projected about 400,000 revenue, and that is basically revenue on bonds proceeds that are waiting to be expended. That is from the 2024 bond. We still have about 18 million in proceeds that are gaining interest income. And then there's a little bit of interest income in the debt service fund, and that is basically on that 7.5 million while we collect it and waiting it to be expended for debt service. So we have a little bit of income there too. Total is about 4.6, 4.7 million on interest income. On rental income, we still show two different line items. We have the regular rental income of all of our residences and such. That's almost 1.8 million. And then separately, we're showing the rental income of this building. We have 3 suites behind me that we're projecting 540,000 revenue. Of course, there's also the Rancho San Antonio agreement of about 527,000 and miscellaneous 100,000. I can guarantee you that that amount is completely wrong, but it's a placeholder. Lately, it's been significantly more, which is always nice. The bequeathments or in wills or other donations, it could be 700,000 this year, I believe. So yeah, that's just a placeholder. But that brings us to a total of $100,902,084. That's maybe the first time we broke 100 million. We have other funding sources as well. On Measure AA, you see we're looking to pull down about 10.4 million to pay for the projects. We also have Hawthorne's about $1 million, and a lot of that is going for re-roofing various structures. And the Committee for Infrastructure that I mentioned, 6.3 outbound. And then the bottom line general fund transfers, that is basically to make the general fund capital whole for all of those expenditures, as well as Fund 50, the debt service, because we still have general fund debt as well. Of course, that zeroes out to zero, but you see the total transfer is 17.5 million. If we add it all up, we have $106,065,714 in revenue and other funding sources. Any questions on this slide? Then we'll move on to the graphic that shows you the trend, basically. The large part of the column, of course, the blue, I think it's blue, is the property tax grants. It fluctuates throughout the years. There's also sometimes a little bit of a timing difference in grants. You may do the work one year and receive the funding the next year. That happens from time to time because it's on a reimbursement basis. Interest income, it depends on how much we have in the bank. If we just issued a bond, for example, we have more money in the bank waiting to be earning interest than if we're almost spent down. And then rental income is actually fairly stable. This gives you a breakdown of the grant revenue projection. The top 4 are general fund projects. A lot of it is dealing with wildland fire and IPM, as well as kangaroo rat habitat and wildlife conservation reforestation. So those top 4 are related to general fund revenue. Then we have quite a few Measure AA projects. Of course, Highway 17 crossings, both the overcrossing and the undercrossing are the big tickets. We have 4 of those. We also have the phase 2 trail improvements, 2.4, 2.5 million. We're finally going to collect on that. The paperwork is pretty much done. We're submitting the reimbursement request, and that cash is anticipated to come in next fiscal year. We have the Alma Bridge new crossing, almost 700,000, and then there's a vision plan portfolio 1, which is also in support of Measure AA, of course, 63,000. A total of 8.2 million. A nice variety of grantors, State Coastal Conservancy, Valley Water, Wildlife Conservation. We have Parks and Rec from the state in there, CNRA, it's DOT. But it's a good spread. We don't have all of our eggs in one basket, if you will. So now let's look at the expenses. So we have projected a total of 106 million, which is a 13% increase from FY26 adopted budget. If we break it out, you see that 58% is general fund. Hawthorne's is a small component, it's 1%. We have Measure AA, 17%, and then we have the general fund capital at 8%, and finally, debt service is about 16%. Now, if we look at this year over year between FY26 and FY27, we see that the general fund increases by about 5.7 million. Some of it is personnel costs because some increases are tied to FOSM. There are also compensation adjustments, and there's health and retirement costs that increase along with all of that. There's also contracted fuels management, resource management, various programs, and farm labor housing partnership that you'll see as we get more granular. Fund 20 is a $100,000 increase, but that is the re-roofing, but shifted from FY26 to FY27. So it's not happening this year, but it's happening next year. Fund 30, Measure AA, seeing a healthy $9.3 million increase because we have a lot of projects that advanced from final design to implementation and construction. And then Fund 40, which is general fund capital, we're seeing a $3.3 million decrease because, again, a lot of projects shifted over to Measure AA reimbursement eligibility. And we're also purchasing fewer vehicles and machinery now that we've caught up with the backlog that we had for several years due to supply chain issues on vehicles. And debt service is pretty much flat. Question?
I did have a question, and maybe this is not the right time, but let me ask anyway. With the Farm Labor Housing Partnership contribution, I think it was 450,000. What was anticipated, right?
Correct.
Has that been earmarked for a particular project?
Yes.
Could I know what it is?
So I've been working with Puente, and they have a project, Casa de las Flores, in Pescadero. They just about a year or a little bit more ago, they purchased the former Pescadero High School, and it was converted to housing many years ago, but it's in need of massive repairs if it's to stay as valuable farm worker housing. So they are working on that project first to repair the roof and the exterior, and then remodel it. And it would be a series of, I believe, 6 apartments and then 3 dormitory style rooms as well.
Thank you for that reminder. I'm really glad we're working with Puente on that particular project. There are other projects, however, that I think are slightly much more controversial. So should we have a request for funding for that, or, in future years, I'm thinking it would be helpful, I think, for the board to perhaps have some input in that as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, we did work potentially on a project with Post that did not work out because they're looking at the balance sheet and whether a portion contribution from a government agency would require them to use prevailing wage. They decided not to do that. That was their choice. And then we have had conversations with the project, which maybe is what you're referring to in downtown Half Moon Bay with the senior farm work housing project. So that hasn't been brought to the board, but we've certainly had conversations with Mercy Housing. We are really concentrating on the Puente project first before reaching back out to them to see where they're at in their project. And I mean, if it was the board's request, we could certainly come and have a board discussion on that project prior to proposing funding for it. But that's where we're at right now, is probably looking at that for potentially for next, fiscal year 28, if the funding need stays for that project.
Okay, yeah, I would just like to have an opportunity for the board to reflect on that, should it become a large, a more apparent request.
No, noted, and perhaps we'll bring it just as a concept to the board in fiscal year 27.
Thank you.
If the discussions on that progress.
Thank you.
All right. The breakdown of the expenses by fund. For general fund, we're looking at a net of 61.5 million. It's about 62.5 expenses and operating, but we're looking to reimburse for labor for Measure AA projects of almost 900,000. You see the Hawthorne's fund operating is about 47,000, but then capital a little bit over $1 million. That is the re-roofing. Measure AA capital 18 million. General fund capital 8.8. And then you see the debt service. It's split up over the two numbers. For general fund is 8.8 million, and for Measure AA is 7.5 million, and that totals out to 106 million, 17,396 in total expenses. This is the trend as far as our expenses go. The general fund operating is on the top. That is, again, blue. Hawthorne is barely visible sometimes. And then we see Fund 30, Measure AA, that's both land and capital, is in the burnt orange. I'm not that good with my colors, so you have to excuse me. General fund capital fluctuates. That's light green. And then the debt service is dark green. And I want to remind the board again that acquisition cost, so the cost of the actual acquisition of buying the land itself is not included, but any pre-work as far as surveys, etc., is included in the budget. The land, when we do purchase something, is always accompanied by a resolution for the board to do a budget amendment to pay for it. This gives us a little bit of a snapshot of land cost. You see the budget versus actuals. The blue is the left column for each is the budget, and then the purple is the actuals. And you see the big difference, and that's where we come to you with a budget amendment for each acquisition. The exception being FY24, that I believe that was the Eberhard acquisition. We knew that was going to happen, so that was already in the budget. But then we still acquired more with budget amendments. This is the overall Measure AA expense trend. You see the various projects, the bond issuance that we did. It fluctuates, of course. It also depends on when a project is going into construction versus design mode, because construction tends to be more significant. Gives you a breakdown of the four program areas as well. You see public access projects, those are the green, natural resource, purple. And again, land, you only see that on the first 3 years where we have actuals, and we don't have it yet on the budgeted side. As far as debt projection, debt service projection, I should say, general fund is very stable. It's about 8.8, and then it drops down to about 8.6. Fluctuates a little bit, but not too much. Measure AA is very stable at about 7.5 million. Of course, that will change when we issue a new bond, which is possible in probably 2027, next year, late next year, I would imagine. But the overall combined debt service is very stable, 16 million, give or take a couple 100,000. This colorful graph shows you which bonds we have outstanding on the general fund, and there's only 4 remaining. It also shows you when we're making payments. Oddly enough, the 2012s come back in FY30 through 34. There was a component there we could not refinance. But it's pretty stable. It completely drops off FY38 and FY39. When I first started here, before I did all the refinancings, it went out to 2042. So we shortened it up by a few years, freeing up future cash. The Measure AA debt service is a little bit different. It's very flat, very predictable. And you also see when it tapers off, when it drops, it steps down as certain bonds are matured 30 years after they've been issued, which then frees up future space on the levy for a future measure, for a future bond measure. Any questions on debt service?
Director Kishimoto.
It's maybe more of a comment, I guess. I mean, it's in some ways, it's amazing how stable it is since interest rates have been going up. But I guess we haven't had to refinance, and hopefully interest rates will be low enough when we do have to issue new bonds.
Well, yes and no. So on the general fund, we only refinance when it's to our advantage. So and they suggest that you have to save at least 3% on your total debt service. We've had some presentations recently where it was a little bit north of that, but then the market turned again, so now it's a little bit tighter. We're keeping an eye on that. If there is something advantageous, we will take advantage of it on the general fund side. If we can lump it in with refinancings on Measure AA, we can also do that, as long as there's savings to be had. Otherwise, we would not refinance, right? And then as far as issuing new bonds for Measure AA, the rates are what they are when we issue, and they are financed through the separate levy on the outside. So that's not coming out of a general fund. That's a separate levy. And the controller's projections are that, you know, when we issued when we went to the voters, we're not going to go beyond $3.18. We're not even going to get close to $3 in the 30 years. So we're pretty good shape. Yeah.
Very good. Mm-hmm. Anybody else on this one? Nope.
Oh, there's my favorite slide. I know I make that joke every year, but it's actually true. This gives you everything you need to know about the budget in very high level, of course. It breaks it up by fund, the 5 different funds and the total, as well as the different line items as far as the various revenues between taxes, grants, interest income, rental, etc. It has the other funding sources broken out, the bond reimbursements, the Hawthorne endowment, how much you're putting into reserves. And then on the expense side, it shows you exactly where the operating funds are, the reimbursement, where the capital goes between the 3 different capital funds. And it gives you the total and the slight change of fund balance as projected. I'm not going to name all these numbers again because we just went through that. I don't want to put you to sleep on that, but this is the slide for the entire budget. Mm-hmm.
And it's just that, all these numbers are put together so beautifully, but I noticed on page 47, you have the fund balances page, and there's Fund 40 is the general fund capital goes down to zero, right? Is there a reason why?
I know I do have a few slides coming up on fund balance, page 27.
Yeah, on bottom of page 47.
27 or 47?
47.
47.
Yeah. Change in fund balance.
Oh, right. I shouldn't even have to look at this. General fund capital does not have a fund balance because it's all rolled into fund 10. Fund 40,
okay.
Fund 40 always zeroes out.
Okay, is that right?
Right.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, because the general fund pays for Fund 40
Mm.
in full. So whatever expenses are happening in Fund 40, they draw down from Fund 10.
Okay, I didn't understand that.
Yeah.
There's you'll have to explain it to me some other time.
It's basically considered one fund, but for accounting purposes, we break out the capital to show that separately from operating.
Okay.
And that's also why in the middle of the page, you'll see in the page that's on the screen right now, the general fund transfers. In Fund 10, it's a negative 17.5 million, right? So that moves over 8.8 million to general fund capital to pay for those projects, as well as 8.7 to the debt service fund to pay for general fund debt service. And it zeroes out because it just pays for it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
It's kind of like an overdraft protection. It's kind of like an overdraft protection, right? Right. It automatically, you write the check on Fund 40 and it automatically pulls the money out of Fund 10.
All right.
Okay. So we also looked at a little bit of long-range financial plan just to make sure, what we're proposing is affordable. And we do it a little bit separately, a little bit differently from the controller, but we come up with similar results. We use his revenue projections. We look at future year capital expenditures, and for this time, we assume no new FTEs for FY 28 and 29. And this is just for the calculation exercise. It doesn't mean we won't come to you next year for FTEs. That remains to be seen. We'll see that a year from now. 2 FTEs in FY 30 and 4 in FY 31. Part of the reason of tamping down on the number of FTEs is also we need to absorb the new FTE headcount that the FOSM refresh recommended that we brought on board. We need to absorb all of that. We also have inflation factors. Growth in property tax is about 4% that we're looking at. Operating expense at 6%. Labor costs 5%. Capital expense 2%. Land 2%. And then other is 1%. Those are the numbers that we threw into the model. And this is what we come up with. And you'll see the revenues are, of course, slowly increasing, and so are the expenditures. You'll see some blips in the expenditures, especially in FY 28 and 29, as the field offices are being constructed. You'll see the excess of revenues over expenditures or shortage in FY 29, for example, when we're using reserves. And that gives you a fund balance ending. FY 25, we're projecting 126. It grows in FY 26. It continues to grow in 27. Then it starts to decrease a little bit as the field office construction comes online. And it tapers down to FY 31 to 100 million. And it also shows you the breakdown of non-spendable, of restricted, of committed, and committed is where the infrastructure reserve resides. There's also assigned and then unassigned. Unassigned is freely spendable, if you will, but that is capped at, or minimum is 30% of our revenue. That's our cushion. This is our change in fund balance for the upcoming year. over the various funds. And again, you'll see that Fund 40 has the 0. And that's, I believe, the one we just looked at. So it's a good question. You'll see we have some fund balances, of course, in Fund 30 that is going down as we draw down and we do projects in Measure AA. The debt service fund has a fund balance because we need to collect our tax levy ahead of making the debt service payments. And so for a while, there is funding sitting there waiting to be expensed. This, again, is a different slice or a different way of looking at it. We have our non-spendables. We have a restricted. The restricted is the Hawthorne's endowment, as well as the pension, the PARS 115 trust. And then we also have committed, we have a capital maintenance and repair. That is about 11.5 million. We have our equipment replacement reserve of 4 million. We have future acquisitions. That's coming down to about 13 million because we purchased the coastal land office, the land for the coastal office in Half Moon Bay with that. And then we have the infrastructure that we're going to use to pay for the construction of the 2 field offices.
Director Gleason.
Could you explain a little bit about the non-spendable and that bump up in FY25?
Yeah. And I'm drawing I had the same question not too long ago, and I'm drawing a blank on that right now. But it has to do with leases and calculations. It's more of a calculating exercise than anything else. It's reserves for leases that we have. Oh, Rafaela?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So the difference is mainly in the Stefan, you were on the right path. It's a reclassification. Previously, we weren't including rents, leases receivable, and now we are. It's a significant amount. So that bump is our auditors had us change that because it's just a significant amount. So it's now included in non-spendable. So it's leases receivable from our leases.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, and so now we'll look at expenses a little bit more granular. So first, let's look at the personnel budget. It's coming in at 45.9, basically 46 million. And this includes base wage adjustment coming up on July 1st. It includes increases in pension that goes along with that, as well as any medical increases and step increases. We also have the annualization of a net of 9 FTEs that were authorized in FY26. You may remember that when we propose new FTEs, we only budget them at 6 months because we don't know exactly when throughout the year they'll come on, but it's spread out through the year. So if we take 6 months, it's an average. We're doing pretty good. And we also had 3 limited term conversions. They were also new FTEs as far as that goes, but they were already filled through limited term contracts, and all of that is annualized. And then we have the FY27 growth, 2 new FTEs, and that rounds out the entire initial FOSM refresh recommendation. And we're also adding 2 new interns. So the intern program is going from a robust 12 to a more robust 14. This is an overview of the staffing, the refresh plus the FY27 staffing. The FOSM provided us a roadmap for growth, including financial stability and any kind of other operating recommendations. And it only looked at 1 decade. So as far as that goes, our staffing plan for the decade was almost 93 FTEs, but short term is 33. The board has already approved 31 up to date. And that leaves us with the 2 that we're proposing to round out the total 33. And that catches us up with the FOSM refresh plus the coastal management plan. As far as operating initiatives, the FOSM refresh, we have completed or underway 25 of all the recommendations. We have 9 in progress and completed 16 actually, so that's pretty good. And we'll kick off the remaining initiatives in FY27, and that is another 6. And the way we space them is basically it's the start of an initiative, the start of implementing a recommendation, because some recommendations can be implemented much quicker than others. Others may be multi-year projects. And we'll give you a much more detailed update on the FOSM refresh implementation in December at our retreat. This is a breakdown of the personnel budget. You'll see base salaries. They were 30.3 million in FY26 and proposed to go to 32.5 in FY27. It's about a 7.7% increase. We have the 3% COLA. We also have step increases. Prior to the compensation philosophy change, most staff was maxed out, so there were no or very few step increases. With the new compensation philosophy, people increased in ranges but dropped in steps, which gave them more runway, more opportunities to get more step increases in future years. That's why that number is significantly bigger than prior years. So that gives us a total salary budget of 34.7 million. Pensions are tied to the salary expense, so that's going up commensurately. Medical, for some reason, always seems to increase. It never seems to go down. And then we have other expenses as well that's going down a little bit. That gives us a total benefits, about 10.5 million. And then we also have the workers' comp and unemployment and director fees, and that rounds out a total, grand total personnel budget of 45.9, almost 46 million. As far as the departmental budgets, like I said, 106 million total. It's a almost $12 million increase, about 13% versus current year adopted. And the key focus areas are project delivery and also natural resource stewardship. We do have a little bit of an offset on the increases because about 3 departments have reduced operating expenses. And this is the breakdown by departments. Administrative services actually is a grouping of departments. It's a business line, not just one department. We also have engineering and construction is going up 34%, but that is because of construction is going to happen. Fleet and facilities is pretty much flat, down a little bit. General counsel up a little. General manager, you see that is going up 24%, but that is also where the farm labor housing of 450,000 is. And because it's a small, relatively small department, that makes a bigger percentage increase. Land stewardship and trails increased by 12%. Also more work, more construction happening. Natural resources is increasing. Planning. Public affairs is fairly stable, real property down a little bit, and visitor services, now that the radio project is coming to a close, is going down as well. So that gives us a total increase on the departmental side of 15%. And if we include debt service, which we backed out for this comparison, it's a 13%. So as far as notable changes, engineering and construction, like I said, measure AA, project delivery. Going into construction, perhaps stables, BCR North parking. We have the Highway 35 crossing and Britsma Creek Trail. There's also historic preservation. That's the re-roofing project on the Hawthorns complex. Natural resources accounts for 31% of the total increase. More Measure AA project delivery, including the Johnson Ranch Habitat and Agricultural Water Supply Project. I think that is the longest project name that we have. And that's being done together with the San Mateo RCD. There's also ecological health, of course, expanding fisheries restoration, biodiversity monitoring and IPM work, and then increasing plant care for completed capital and other restoration projects to ensure long-term success. On land stewardship and trails, that's the 13% of the total increase. Again, Measure AA project delivery on all cylinders. We have the BCR Phase 2 multi-use trail. There's the Meadow Trail reroute and Long Ridge Trail system improvements. Also, wildfire resilience, expanded fuels management via the wildland fire capacity projects. And then lastly, investing in people, resources, and partners. We are investing in personnel consistent with the FOSM, the increasing in staffing, the steps that I just mentioned, and any inflationary increases in health and retirement costs. We also have operational efficiencies where we will implement 2 new software platforms, which will support recruitments as well as project management. And then as far as partners goes, we, like I mentioned, the $450,000 partner contribution for farm labor housing. Okay. Now let's look at the proposed capital improvement and action plan. We'll look at it by program area. We have areas of interest. We'll show you some historical trends, and we can look at some project highlights. For reference, this is the Big Rocks list, and the icon of the Big Rocks at the bottom right, you'll see that throughout the budget book as well. Whichever project is on this list will have that icon with it because it's a big rock. And that basically means that if we have any kind of staffing capacity issues, we will refocus and make sure that these projects keep moving. They're broken up over 5 categories. We have the climate resilience and biodiversity. We have a number of projects in Purisima Creek Redwoods. There is the public access and trails component, the FOSM refresh, it's both the update and the recruitments, and then infrastructure improvements for the 2 field offices. If we look at the expenses for the CIAP, the total projection is $32.6 million, which is a 32% increase versus the current fiscal year, and it's about 31% of the overall budget. There's 127 projects proposed, capital, operating, and supporting, and they're grouped over 4 different program areas. We also have vision plan versus non-vision plan breakout. The green is Measure AA land and capital. And then the purple is Fund 40 non-vision plan general fund capital. And there's a color in between that I don't know what color it is, and you can barely see it, but that's any kind of other vision plan general fund capital, like the Kennedy Trail that we had the presentation on earlier at 5 o'clock would be a vision plan, because it's vision plan portfolio 50 something, 53, I believe. I think the key takeaway is the increasing line. Okay. We do have some Measure AA unfunded estimates because not all projects are fully covered by the individual portfolios. Totals in the future for between 27, 28, 29, and beyond totals $46-47 million. FY27 is balanced, but once we get into FY28, you'll see that there's some unfunded areas. In Purisima, that portfolio is maxed out or beyond maxed out, as is Bear Creek. 21 is also more than maxed out. In 29, you'll see the funding gaps appearing for the Highway 17 crossings as well. That's about $11 million. Of course, we are working very diligently with grants and applying for grants and trying to lock down grants, but we're not counting our chickens until they hatch. We're not counting the money until we have it awarded. That's why you see the funding differences. But it is a significant amount, and it does basically mean that we should be cautious, because if we don't get the grants, we need to find alternative funding sources.
Director Kishimoto.
Well, so for example, I'm looking at just wondering how you get these numbers, because then, for example, the Bear Creek Stables fiscal year 28, you show 6.3 million. And it's, but only 1.6 million is unfunded?
For the stables, yes. For the stables project. Which page are you on?
Well, let's see, I'm looking at the project itself is on page 174.
Okay.
And it shows an expenditure projection for 28 of 6.3 million. And then on page 65, you also have a measure AA unfunded estimates. That's okay. That's this table that you're showing here.
Right.
And then
but like on page 174, the bottom part, funding sources for that project.
Okay.
You'll see it broken down. There's measure AA of 3.5, 3.6 million. There was in the past an allocation of other funding of 1.2 million, so we're short 1.6 on that project right now.
I see. 1.2 million is that's the what's assumed from the partners?
No, there was some interest income that the board allocated, as well as I believe $500,000 from general fund.
Okay, that was kind of the reallocated. Okay.
Right.
Okay, that's helpful. And then well, and then on page 36, you have that summary of the all the projects and fiscal year 27. So you have 3.5 million for that.
Right. Page 36.
Page 36, yeah.
Which number?
Let's see, line 21.
Line 21.
Page 36.
That's the total portfolio.
Okay, and 3.6 million, but how does that fit with the 6 point? Okay, that's 27, so that's the 1.7. That's 1.1, and then 28. And the remaining is 4.5 million. But then for fiscal year 28, for the stables alone is 6.3 million. So, I mean, I just can't make all these numbers come together.
But that is the fund balance. That is the balance of the total 300 million on page 36.
Okay.
That is different from the expenditures.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Okay. So that's and that's where that gap comes from.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Good. Anybody else? Nope.
Okay. So that if we look at changes by the 4 program areas, land acquisition and preservation is pretty stable. It's going down by about 100,000, but it's very consistent. Natural resource protection, there's a 2.8 million increase, and again, that is because of the Johnson Ranch Habitat Agriculture Water Supply Improvements project. Public access is increasing by 7.3 million, and that is the north parking area in Bear Creek. There is the Prisma Creek Trail vehicle access and the Highway 35 multi-use trail crossings. And then assets and organizational support, you see a $2.1 million decrease. That is because the radio system upgrades will be nearing completion, and we have, like I mentioned before, fewer anticipated vehicle and machinery purchases. So if we look at a 5-year budget trend for the 4 program areas between land, natural resources, public access, and infrastructure, going from FY23 to all the way to FY28, so it encompasses the entire 3-year CUP. And you'll see the increases. Of course, public access jumps out because that is Highway 17, among other things. Progression of land acres acquisition. This is acres acquired for each of the years, going back to 1974. It's opportunistic, right? Land has to be available for us to buy at a good price. But if you look at the cumulative, it looks like this, and it's, of course, steadily increasing. And you'll see some of the jumps, like right around, was it 07 or 08? There's a jump. And the most recent big jump, of course, was Cloverdale. And I guess that's somewhere over 70,000, north of 70,000 acres. We have 3 areas of interest. We have agriculture, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and wildfire resiliency. For agriculture, we have 10 projects of $4.5 million, and that encompasses a lot of fencing, water infrastructure, and pond repairs. The diversity, equity, and inclusion is 29 projects of $9.1 million, but that basically encompasses all the high-dollar public access initiatives. And then wildfire resiliency is 16 projects at about $3 million, which includes fuels management, forestry, and restoration. This is the list of agriculture projects, and they're also included in the program areas, because it's just a different slice of it. There's 4 in the general fund. There's a partnership funding for farm labor. We see Total Ranch, Elkos Libidos, Carbon Farm Plan implementation. And then we also have several Measure AA projects, Madonna Creek Habitat Enhancement, Johnson Ranch Project, 2 Johnson Ranch projects, but also the fence and the cross fence, Loma Drone Perimeter Fence, and then Cloverdale Road System Review, and Ranch Land Opportunity, which is phase 3. About almost $4.5 million. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. A lot of projects, quite a few general fund type projects, including ADA barrier removal, tribal consultation, the Rancho San Antonio Road and ADA improvements. There's Fremont Older, Piketty ADA, Mount Umunham ADA path, as well as a number of Measure AA projects, including La Honda, Hawthorne's Area Plan, Montebello, Trail Extension, Rancho San Antonio, Cloverdale, and then also Bear Creek Stables. I don't know if this is the time to pause on the Bear Creek Stables in this column, because we had originally included it in agriculture, but there was discussion at the ABC committee as to whether it should be agriculture or should it be diversity, equity, and inclusion. Pardon?
We did discuss dividing it in half too.
Dividing it in half is a yes, but that means we're going from an automated process to a manual calculation, prone to error perhaps, but so there's
my job is just to report, not to.
Absolutely. So there's 3 different options: either leave it where it is now, or push it back over to ag, or split it 50-50.
So maybe I can jump in here as being a member of the committee, and I think the one that brought this point up. This originally was in the ag column, and and we had a good discussion about this, of if you look at all the other projects in ag, Bear Creek Stables, even though it involves horses and involves barns and things, it really was of a different project. And it, to me and to us, I think we were thinking this was actually much more about DEI and access and public engagement and public connection. So that's why we proposed, which staff took the one option, just to move it completely over to DEI. We did flag this, though. We wanted to, just as Stefan did, we wanted to bring it up to the rest of the board so that you all could talk about that. And it's a sizable number, so that's one of the reasons we thought, yeah, we should make sure that people are comfortable with that. So,
Director Kishimoto.
Well, and it's going to be even a much more less sizable number than next year, 6.3 million. That's going to inflate both of these.
Right.
Yes, it's. Yeah, it's not. I don't know if really. Maybe you should ask the DEI committee if it's really appropriate to include, like, say, 6.3 million of Bear Creek Stables into what we claim as DEI projects. You know.
Would the entire $6 million go into this? Or?
Oh, it would be half and half. But if you do half
the
and
other
half,
option is to go half and half. Which I'm less excited about splitting. I think it should be really one or the other.
Yeah. Or neither. It doesn't have to go on either one, does it?
That's true too. It doesn't have to go anywhere.
Yeah, it doesn't. I don't think it belongs in either one, really.
But there is a public access component to it, like the other projects listed here in the DEI column.
In fact, to me, that was a huge reason that we went forward with the Bear Creek Stables, that it wasn't just about the horses. It was about public programming and public access, and kind of being a public portal, if you will, to Bear Creek Redwoods. So,
and the diversity of access.
Right.
Yeah, if I could weigh in, I mean, Bear Creek Stables is not agriculturally zoned. It's hillside zoning, which is why the facility has always, all the repairs have been under a legal non-conforming use permit. So I guess I could see an agricultural designation if this was strictly boarding and breeding and animal husbandry, but given that Bear Creek, the Friends of Bear Creek Stables are all about public-facing programming, and I think horses that are being boarded there are required to participate in programming. I would either suggest, I mean, I would be in favor of having this either be DEI or neither. I don't think it's appropriate to be in agriculture when I look at the list of projects, and I think it was brilliant for you to mention it and bring it up, because it does seem like it's not the right place to put it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I was on the fence originally, but I also think I kind of like that idea of taking it off this list completely.
How would that work?
That's a possibility too.
Where would it go?
It would not be in any of the these focus areas, but it would stay in the program, of course, because the 4 programs have all the projects. But this particular, whether it's agriculture, DEI, or wildfire, it wouldn't be in any of those focus areas of interest.
Could we do that?
Yeah. We can. But I need 4 nods on something.
Director Gleason.
Yeah, I think one thing that's a little confusing here is that this list is titled Diversity, Equity, Inclusion. It's really, I think, more inclusive public access are the items on this list, right? And you could find some of these that maybe are specifically targeted at DEI, but I think a lot of these are really public access projects, right? And I think where Director Riffle was originally coming from, if I understand it, was that this is not really ag, it's public access, right? It's focused on public access. So to me, given the sort of the spirit of this list, I felt like it did belong here.
It did or didn't? It did.
I think it did, yeah.
I mean, if we look at the definition up above, connecting diverse communities to the public open space preserves through access. And each of those projects has an access component in it. Doesn't mean the entire project is access necessarily, but it has a component in it. And that's why they're listed here.
Director Kishimoto.
Well, if you want to argue that, then I would suggest don't call this DEI, call this public access.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that. I mean, I think it's been awkward to call this DEI. Right?
Just, excuse me, I'm just thinking, does that change the whole balance? This is, as it exists, the DEI is one of 4 major categories, no?
No. It's a area of interest. It's separate from the 4 program areas. These 3 areas of interest, all projects out from the 4 program areas, just to highlight them. This is agriculture, this is equity and inclusion, or this is
area, or do we need one that do we need another interest area?
Well,
Director Riffle, then Director Holman.
Okay. If I go back to the original reason we set these 3 buckets up, if you will, and that was, gosh, this is when right after we had the fires, and it was when we were really getting the whole DEI program going, and then ag was, what are we doing on the coast, and primarily, and so the idea was, let's use a different lens, if you will, on those 3 areas, because those were kind of our startup, our key areas that we were trying to do, make moves. So maybe to Director Kishimoto or Director Gleason, that was the reason that it captured that DEI. Frankly, it's really hard. I don't envy staff trying to figure out what actually goes into that DEI. I'm glad you put the explanation up there. So anyhow, that's the history of why we named it DEI, and why, because that was an area of focus for us. And I don't know if maybe our general manager might want to pontificate a little bit about losing the DEI label.
Yeah, we are currently using the DEI label, and so that's why this is expressed as it is. These different public access projects, they have an element of enhancing or introducing access in different ways, whether it's to a new area that hasn't been opened in the past, whether it's to enhance access where access currently is difficult, whether it's to provide more accessibility to people of different physical abilities, or reaching out to different groups, different community groups who've perhaps haven't been as well connected. So it's the definition of DEI is broad depending on how you look at it. And so we try to look at it through a broader lens, because it can have very far and reaching benefits to different people. And so that's why you see the list that you see as it is.
Director Holman.
I guess the difficulty in this, digging down into this as we are right now, is like, if you look at tribal consultation and engagement, I mean, that's certainly DEI. But if you look at the Hawthorne's area plan, that's not a very diverse community. I mean, so there is a difficulty in putting some of these in here. The way Bear Creek Stables fits in here is because, as Director Ripple said, is because of all the different programming it's going to be available to very diverse communities. And frankly, services and access to programs that are almost not available anymore to many people. So that would put it into DEI, but some of these other sites, so it becomes a difficulty.
Yeah, and I guess what I would say is the way we're looking at it is we're seeing Midpen as a conduit to be able to bring communities into spaces that are hard to reach. You're correct. The Hawthorne's property is in Portola Valley. It's a different community, but in opening that property and having those trails, we now have the opportunity to have dose-and-led hikes or to have partnerships with community groups who bring our members of the public from other communities and to enjoy and experience that space as well. So it's kind of a different way to look at it, and we see Midpen as a vehicle to be able to introduce these lands and these landscapes and these experiences to other folks.
Yeah, thank you, Anna.
Okay. So, something I've been talking about this with staff, because most of us being open space parks people, don't think of the need for parking and a restroom and a signboard to have comfort visiting a place. But I would say the majority of people, even that are the subset that visit parks, are only going to be comfortable when they have a parking lot, they have a restroom, and then they have a map board or signboard. So I do think that these, even though they are, as you said, basic public access projects, I do think they increase the diversity of the groups that we reach and have a comfort level. There are many people, all the wonderful places along Skyline where you just pull off to the side of the road and it looks like you're just in the woods and there's no infrastructure there. There are many people that are not comfortable doing that. So I do think, even though it's basic access infrastructure, it does add to the diversity of people that we attract.
All right. So if I could, I absolutely, when I look at the description of what the DEI projects should be, the connecting to diverse communities, et cetera, Bear Creek Stables, given the programming that the Friends have put out there, just is a poster child for this. So I'm comfortable with it. And actually with all of these, the projects that are here, I can see, as Brian said, it creates, and Anna, it creates new pathways for people to connect with things that they might never have a chance to. So, yes, shall we move it to DEI and leave it there? Thumbs up or thumbs down? Thumbs up. Okay, so we have 6 thumbs up and an abstain or a oppose.
Yeah, I would just leave it out of those buckets.
Okay, very good.
All right.
Yeah. Okay, and just for clarity, because we have to we're taking direction, is that we are leaving it since we have a majority. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. This is page 2 of the list of programs that we have under the area of interest for DEI. So that totals about $9 million for FY27. You also see some vision plan, but that all of those portfolios other than Kennedy lead into Measure AA projects. Wildland fire resiliency, there's also 2 pages of it. A lot of projects. The dollar amounts per project are smaller, but doesn't mean they're any less significant. And this is the second page where also Measure AA and Vision Plan projects come into play. total of about $3 million. A little bit of additional information on wildfire resiliency. So in addition to projects, we have 2 in-house crews, resource management and wildfire resiliency crews, for a total of 11 FTEs that are dedicated to fuels reduction work. And the budget for the FTEs is approximately $1.5 million. We have 2 field resource specialists that lead the crews, and they also direct contractors' work. And some staff time is reimbursed through grant projects or through project grants, but most of it is dedicated to ongoing vegetation and resource management. On the climate program, we have the Strategic Plan for Adaptation and Resilience to Climate Change, SPARC, which will be presented to the board for approval. We have the Climate Action Plan to be reviewed. The data year of 2026 will be the next. It will be 10-year milestone already. The greenhouse gas reduction activities, they'll continue with fuel efficiency and charging infrastructure for electric vehicles. And study to investigate effects of biochar on grasslands is in development. And there's multiple forest health projects in the planning phases, including strengthening stability of carbon storage and long-term sequestration. So then the next part is the 4 program areas. And we'll start off with land acquisition and preservation. Susanna, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay. I'll advance to the slide for the projects of land acquisition and preservation. Go ahead.
Yes. Good evening, board members. I'm Susanna Chen, Assistant General Manager. I'm sorry I'm not able to be there in person and have to be this voice from the sky. Trust me, I would much rather to be there to present the program to you in person. And I will first cover the land acquisition and preservation program. For FY27, we have 12 projects under this program, and all of them are ongoing projects. This list is very similar to what we presented to you at your retreat number 2. And I will just highlight a couple projects on this list. The first one I want to highlight is project VP 15-005, the Post-Dyer Creek project. This project is a partnership project with Peninsula Open Space Trust, POST. POST is currently owning that property that's about 72 acres, right adjacent to our Bear Creek Redwood Preserve. Our Real Property Committee visited this property in October of last year. They liked the property. However, they did identify a couple area for us to follow up, including the drainage on the property and also the condition of that long driveway that leading into the property. We have since hired geotechnical consultant to help us with doing some analysis in those areas. The consultant has completed their field work, and they are in the process of doing the analysis. We anticipate, pending their evaluations, we anticipate we will complete the acquisition in FY27. We will be purchasing the property from Post at a discounted price. Another projects I want to highlight is the property with San Jose Water Company, which is the project number VP20-004. That we have the opportunity to work with San Jose Water Company to purchase approximately 345 acres of their property, their watershed land along Trail Creek and Los Gatos Creek. This acquisition is very interesting. It comes with 2 pieces of property. The one located on the west side of Highway 17 along Trail Creek is approximately 328 acres. It can be the addition to our El Sereno Open Space Preserve, and it will provide protection to our future Highway 17 wildlife undercrossing. So it's a very valuable piece of land to the district. The piece of property on the east side of Highway 17 is about 17 acres. There's an existing Los Gatos Creek Trail on that property. Acquiring that piece of property will allow us to perfect public access on the Los Gatos Creek Trail. So we are already working with San Jose Water Company on these acquisitions. Our goal is to complete the acquisition in 2027. I think I will pause here and to see if you have any questions on the projects I highlight, as well as questions on this list before you.
Okay, thank you, Susanna. Director Gleason.
Thanks, Susanna. What would that mean for the management of the Los Gatos Creek Trail in that area?
So that will be something that will allow us to work through as part of the acquisitions. Currently, I think City of Los Gatos is managing the trail, but there's no official agreement between San Jose Water Company and the city. So as part of this acquisition process, it will allow us to formalize the management of the trail. That's what I mean by acquiring this property will allow us to perfect the public access along these trails.
Okay, thank you.
That was
All right.
Oh, sorry. I didn't see any other questions. Please continue.
Brian, you want to take natural resource?
All right, so now we're moving into natural resource protection. So, Susanna and I and Stefan have gone over this quite a bit. So we're always like, oh, what should we highlight? So just in general for natural resource protection and restoration, we have 41 projects for fiscal year 27, estimated at 10.9 million and a 34% increase from FY26 adopted. Here's the whole list. I want to highlight, when we went to ABC, we highlighted projects that were going into construction. I want to highlight a few connected projects that you're going to see quite soon, actually, coming to PNR in June, and then shortly following that, probably in July, for board approval. And they're all connected. And they're following up on a lot of great fisheries work that we've already done. I think you're aware of the habitat in-stream improvements that we've done on La Honda Creek. And we were talking earlier tonight about improvements on Little Butano, where that was actually a fish passage improvement earlier. And then this upcoming project to improve the habitat along that creek. Two major MAA projects, both involve fish passage. And the first step will be evaluating current conditions and need, particularly Arroyo Leon, which is a MAA 1 project. You'll remember that this is related to the Johnson Ranch project, where we're going to do off-stream storage, and they're going to have a forbearance agreement about leaving water in the creek in the summer. That loss of water, the water the farmer lost, was because of coho and steelhead getting threatened and endangered status, and Fish and Wildlife saying you can no longer have these dam impoundments on Arroyo Leon. And those dam impoundments were removed, but the kind of wings of the dam are still there. So we're going to look, maybe fish passage is fine or, or acceptable and we won't do anything, but the RCD is going to take a look at that for us through an agreement that will be coming to the PNR and then the board. And then Labidas, we know that there are 2 barriers at Highway 1 and then at Verde Road. So again, RCD will be, if the board approves an agreement, looking at those 2 passage barriers. The Verde one, pretty straightforward. They'll be just looking at it, seeing what the needs are and kind of developing preliminary plans. And then Highway 1, because we know Caltrans process takes a while, it'll just be going through the initial steps of engaging with Caltrans on that project. And then the other associated project, but it will be a separate agreement, but also with the RCD, is to do monitoring. So, people always often ask how many fish are, coming up our streams. The biggest, most important fishery stream we have on the coast is San Gregorio, connected to La Honda Creek. And a lot of other drainages that have fish going up and breeding in them. And there really isn't, there's, documented observations, that sort of stuff, but there isn't good numbers. So this project will be to put in a stream array and then actually implant little tags in the fish. And so that when they go out to sea and when they come back, we'll be able to measure the fish coming back upstream and get some, ideas of stream use and population numbers and that sort of stuff. And it's really basic information, but it's basic information that we don't have. So this will be really important for, because San Gregorio is the basis of the fish population. All the little streams coming in that don't have barriers have fish in them, but that's the big one that really probably even resupplies other populations if they diminish because of particular conditions. So those are really exciting. We're also almost about to get started on them, so I wanted to highlight those ones. But then if there's any other questions on the long list of natural resource and protection projects as well.
Directors, any questions? Yay for the fish. Great.
For the fish.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, things are getting better and better for fish on the coast. Yep. And hopefully we're doing it in a way where it's staying just as good or better for farmers too. All right.
Thank you.
All right, Susanna, back to you.
Yes. Okay, so I will highlight the public access education and interpretation program. As usual, we have a very robust public access program. We have 42 projects in FY27, 37 are capital projects, and then 5 of them are supporting projects. And this program has a very strong focus on Measure AA projects, fully in alignment with the board's direction to deliver our Measure AA commitments. And of that 37 projects, 21 are Measure AA projects with 5 vision plan projects that supports the Measure AA program. And I will highlight a couple of those projects on the list. And the first one I want to highlight is on this page is the project number 35035, the Purisima Creek Trail repair projects. This is not a Measure AA project. However, it is Big Rock project is among the highest priority projects that we are working on. As you know, Purisima Creek Trail is a very popular trail. It is also a very important emergency and patrol access road. Currently, the trail is not accessible to vehicular traffic because due to damage from the storm in 2022 and 23. As part of this project, we will be repairing several slides and replace 2 bridges to restore the access for ATV. The original trail allows access for full size vehicle. However, because this is a very environmentally sensitive area, it is an important habitat for marble mallets. To balance the operation needs and our goals to minimize impact to our natural resources, we decided to only restore the trail for ATV use. That is supported by our operations staff as well as other fire agencies that utilize this route for their operations. The project is quite expensive. As you can see here, just for 2007, for FY27, the budget request is close to $2 million. And this is a multi-year construction project. The overall construction cost is over $4 million. And because the cost was, because the damage was caused by storm, it is eligible to get FEMA funding. So over the last couple years, we have been diligently pursuing FEMA funding for the projects. Our overall ask is over $3.5 million. And before the government shutdowns, we were at final stage of getting FEMA approval for the projects to move into constructions. Unfortunately, the government shutdown halted that process. And back in April of this year, we have to make a decision if we were to proceed with the projects or hold off the advertisement of the project. If we move forward, meaning that we will be foregoing our eligibility to receive FEMA grant fund. And given that the large amount of funding we are requesting from FEMA and the likelihood of us getting that grant funds, we decided to hold off the project for one construction season to allow us to pursue the FEMA grant funds. So because this is a big rock project and it is a project delay, I wanted to bring it to the board's attention. This delay is for good reasons. Our goal is to finalize the FEMA approval in the remainder of this year, and we will be advertising the project early next year to allow us to still move into construction in later part of fiscal year 2027. Do you have any questions on this project?
Questions, directors? No, I don't see any.
Okay, no question. Then I will, Stefan, if you can move to the next slide. I want to highlight the other project I want to highlight is the Highway 17 crossing project. This is one of the biggest projects that we are carrying forward at this time. And here is only showing the overcrossing budget because the overcrossing is under the public access program. The wildlife undercrossing project is under the natural resources program. However, as you know, the Highway 17 projects have 3 components, including the undercrossing, the overcrossing, as well as the connecting trails that leading to the overcrossing. And we are moving 3 components forward at the same time. And because the district doesn't have the expertise to deliver such a large-scale transportation projects within Caltrans right away, we brought in an implementation partner, VTA, to help us deliver the projects. So through partnership agreement with VTA, VTA is now leading the design of the project, and they will be taking the project to constructions. Right now, the project is at 65% design, and the project team is targeting to complete the project design 100% by early 2027. That will allow us to move into construction during the 2027 construction season if we can get all the funding for construction secured by that time. Currently, the project estimate is about $34 million. That includes the 2 crossings and the connecting trail from El Sereno. And that is assuming that we are constructing both crossings at the same time, taking advantage of some overlapping cost saving. If we were to separate the overcrossing and the undercrossing as 2 different projects and constructing them at different time, the overall cost will be higher than $34 million. And it is always the district's intention to contribute the Measure AA fund that dedicated for the 2 crossing towards construction of the projects, but the majority of the construction fund would come from non-district sources. So our budget team has been working, our grants team has been working hard over the last couple years to try to bridge that funding gaps. They have been, they cast a wide net and pursuing all the potential funding sources, and they're making good headway. The potential funding partners, including Wildlife Conservation Board, the Wildlife Conservation Network, the State Coastal Conservancies, MTC, and even our long-term partner Post. Their goal is to secure those funding commitment by the time the project reach 100% design. That will allow us to move into 2027 constructions. And even though we are leading the effort to bring funding into funding the projects, we are not the lead in terms of implementations. As I mentioned earlier, we partner with VTA, and VTA will be the agencies to advertise the project, provide, oversees the construction, working with the contractor and coordinating with Caltrans throughout the construction of the project. The district has assigned a project manager as the district's representative, and that project manager will work closely with VTA and Caltrans. But in terms of staff resources needed for us to support this project is limited. And that is the way that we can carry this project forward very effectively. And one more thing I want to give the board a heads up related to this project is that in a couple months, we will be bringing some aesthetic elements of the Highway 17 projects for your review, and you will have limited opportunity to provide some feedbacks. I use limited, the term limited, it's because we have to work within Caltrans framework, and Caltrans framework is very rigid. However, if the board recall, you have developed a design guideline for the Highway 17 aesthetic elements back in 2022. The guideline capture your expectation and your desire in terms of those aesthetic elements for Highway 17 should look like. And we have communicated those design guidelines to the designer. They are working under your design guideline and also within Caltrans framework. So anyway, we will be bringing those to you in the next couple months. So I think that's all I want to say about Highway 17. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take it. And also if you have questions on any of the other projects on the list, and I will open for your questions right now.
All right, let me see. You ready? Dr. Kishimoto.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the, page 172 is your Highway 17 trail crossing, and then
Yes.
page 128 is your wildlife crossing over 17.
Yes.
And so the unfunded, so the numbers are like exactly the same for the unfunded. Is that a coincidence? For 29 fiscal year 29, 5,434,000.
I don't have the benefit of have those in front of me, but however, we because we are carrying both projects forward, the expenditures on for the project is evenly split.
I see.
And assigned to the two programs.
So
that does not necessarily mean the cost of the undercrossing and the cost of the overcrossing is exactly the same, but it's just how we do our accounting. Yeah.
As a estimate. Okay, I know.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yes.
Okay, good. And I did meet somebody from Caltrans who might be able to be of help, so I can be in touch with you later. I'll let you know.
Okay.
Anybody else? Director Gleason, are you pondering a question?
Yeah.
Please.
That makes sense, right?
Susanna, is the total number that you quoted for both Highway 17 projects, did that turn out to be lower, or at least our current projection, is it lower than at the time that the two major options were presented to us, the north and the south trail crossing? Or is it similar to?
I don't know anybody in the audience. We call the number when we were presenting the options. The $34 million is our most current estimate. Obviously, that's based on the 65% design, and as we develop to 100% design, it will be an updated cost estimate for the projects. I don't know.
Okay,
in the audience.
I thought I remembered a slightly higher number for the northern one, and even higher one for the southern overcrossing, but
right. I don't know why 37 million was that came to my mind. That seems like a number that I recall, at least one of the options we presented to the board at that time.
Anyway, if it is lower, that's very encouraging. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody else? Thank you, Susanna.
Yeah, you're very good.
All right, I'm reading the room, so just kind of some quick updates on one project, one of our big rock projects. So the Skyline office, of course, is a very important project. It's one of our biggest lifts. And we've promised to report back to you when we have an answer on the water source. That I'm not able to do that tonight. We're still in the process of that. I might be repeating some stuff that you already heard, but we did get an answer from Cal Water that they can't provide it. We got an answer with some very preliminary thoughts on how Palo Alto might provide water, that they didn't just shut the door down, but particularly looking at our mission and capabilities, we see it as very infeasible. One option would be blasting through rock formations in the middle of Montebello to put a water line through. So we see that as incompatible and very expensive, but incompatible with our mission. The other option would be much more expensive, to run all the way up Page Mill, go through multiple jurisdictions. And they're also saying we would have to take on the maintenance and upkeep of a municipal water supply line that is totally outside of our mission. So we're taking all that information, we're compiling it into a letter to the Regional Water Quality Control Board that has the authority over whether we need to go to one of these municipal sources or whether we can do a new well. So we'll be making that argument, and then we will present to you when we get a response back from them, or if it takes a little back and forth when we have a final answer on what our water supply is and some kind of concept of what the cost of that is going to be. The other quick update on the Skyline office, and I know I think 3 board members attended, but we had the open house up on Skyline, very well attended. I heard around 40 people attended in and out, including a former board member, Larry Hassett, who was out there to see the project. And really a lot of support for the project, questions about how much the visibility was going to be from Skyline and from the parking lot and that sort of thing, which, as you know, we're tucking it back in behind that little berm as much as possible. So everything's going good forward and on schedule for the SFO project. That's my quick update. And if there's any questions on that or anything else on our list. I did, and you could see the overview there, 22 projects, 5.6 million.
Thank you, Brian. Any other questions on this? All right.
I'll try to read the room as well. We're at slide 68 of 83. Many of them are hidden in the back, so don't worry about that. We're almost done. At the committee meeting, there was a question from Director Holman regarding the administrative office of the cost of the acquisition, the renovations, and how are we faring as far as recouping our cost. This is an overview of that. So as you recall, the acquisition itself was about 31.5 million. We spent a little bit north of 25 million for renovation, for a total expense of almost 57. We sold 330 Distal for 10,400,000. So that comes off of that amount. We also have revenue here, as you saw earlier in the budget presentation, for leases for suites here, and we're already close to $2 million of rental receipts on that. But also we're saving money because we used to have AO2, 3, and 4 that we were renting behind Carl's Jr., the building on the other side of the wall. So we've already saved 2.3 million on that as well. Of course, there is an escalator in there because rents tend to go up, and we also expand space, and we were already pretty much busting at the seams back then. But the total offset is almost 15 million. So we've recouped as of May of this year about 26%. The leases here will continue for as long as, of course, we have tenants, and we will continue to save funding from AO2, 3, and 4 because we're never ever going to pay those rents again.
I just want to thank you for putting this slide in. I requested so we could track where we were with this, so I appreciate you putting this in.
Absolutely.
It's very helpful.
And that really brings me full circle to the general manager's recommendation. I was kidding.
Well,
but it makes it feel so much better right now that we're back to the recommendation, right?
In for another hour.
I won't read the thing again. It's basically the public hearing for FY27 budget and the 3-year CUP, and then to direct the GM to either bring it forward as it is to the board in 2 weeks, or send it back to ABC, adjust it, and then bring it to the board in 2 weeks.
All right. Directors, are there any further questions before we open the public hearing? No? Okay, we'll hold comments just for a moment. We will open the public hearing.
I do not have any members of the public.
All right, thank you. We will then close the public hearing and move now then to comments, discussion, and or a motion. Director Holman. Oh, yes, of course. We need to hear from the ABC committee and chair, Director Holman.
Well, the only comments I would have is that we spent a little bit more time than this on this, but actually we were pretty efficient, and staff did an excellent job of making presentation. And I have to say I'm very grateful because I guess a couple of things. One is suggestions that we made, and recommendations that we made were incorporated. The best I could find, they were incorporated. And one of the ones, I've talked about this since I've been on the board, I greatly appreciate the evolution of the presentation, because when I came on the board, I was kind of like, but I don't know where to find project MAA, 20733. And you guys know exactly where to go. It is so well organized now. It's like there's an index. There's like the page numbers are in line with what's in the index, what's in the table of contents. It is so much more utilitarian than it has been in the past. From my perspective, it's a great evolution. It's so much more user-friendly. So that's aside from all the work that's in here. That's just being able to find it and being able to track it so we can navigate the work that is represented in here. But thank you to my colleagues, Director McNiven, Director Riffle, who also served on the budget committee, for going through all of this. And I don't have any questions, just those comments. Thanks to staff. Susanna, sorry you can't be here in person. Get well soon. And thank you to everyone.
All right. Other members of the ABC that would like to comment? Dr. Riffle? Dr. McNiven, go for it.
I just want to agree with Director Holman. This one that we got today is even better than the one we got in the budget meeting a couple of weeks ago. So thank you. Really good job.
On behalf of the team, thank you. And it's an award-winning document. It actually, the awards actually got so heavy they fell off the wall the other day.
Director Riffle, did you have?
Yeah, just very quickly before we're losing our audience back there. I just wanted to thank everybody for all of your work, all of the department managers, especially our AGMs and our great finance team staff for doing this. Number one. Number two, I always look to see, we put a lot of work and thought into our goals and objectives, and I always want to make sure that we've adequately covered those. So, on page 10, we have a summary of strategic plan goals and objectives, and thank you for breaking that out for me every year. But it does show some what I think could be balanced coverage. The second thing is I looked at is big rocks. Are we funding, and do we have we prioritized our big rock projects? And as I go through this, yeah, it has. And thank you for the little
the icon.
Icon for that. That makes that easier. And then finally, and very importantly, is I always look to make sure that our controller has endorsed this. And even though I don't think maybe Mike's online, but as noted in our PNR in our ABC meeting, as well as in the report, Mike has had a chance to look at this and agrees that it is sound. So with all of those, I would be happy to make a motion. Make the general manager's recommendation.
And I do have a copy. Okay, yes, Director Kishimoto.
Sure.
Okay. Well, on these last comments, I absolutely agree. I mean, I'm not even on ABC, and all the numbers are here, and you answered my question. And yes, and so it's beautifully organized. So, so really, for everyone who worked on it, congratulations. I think the process is great, and the organization is perfect. I mean, I will vote to bring this back in June, late 2 weeks, but I'm afraid that I just wanted to give you a heads up. I will probably end up voting against the budget because, I mean, I do feel so strongly that this, I believe I support 95% of the budget, but a full 5% of the 3-year budget is the Bear Creek Stables. And I think that's just the tip of the iceberg. I think after that, they're not going to be able to, they'll probably need the help in building up the rest of the plan, which is another $10 million. They won't be able to, anyways, I think it's just not a sustainable project. And we have great deficits in AA, as we've seen, and the 7.75 million is fully half of what the entire natural resource capital projects. It's just a disproportionate impact, and I can't support it. So, it'll be a no vote for me next time. But I can support this coming back.
All right, duly noted. Thank you for those comments, Director Kishimoto. Yes, Director Holman.
Yeah, if I might, and who am I to take on a Stanford MBA? But I will note that, and anyone is welcome to correct me or take me on either, but I'm not taking you on. It's a response to that.
No.
But in different years we have different projects that are large percentages of our budget, and this just happens to be a time when Bear Creek Stables is. But if you look over time, past and future, there are other projects that have done the same thing. So
there's many other projects I support, like 17 Crossing. Yes.
All right, directors, we do have time to discuss this at a future date. So with that, I will, I certainly can't match my fellow colleagues in their eloquence, and kudos for your work tonight. So I will simply say thank you. It's not only so thorough, but it's also really, really beautiful. Mm-hmm. And I think Director Riffle was ready to make a motion.
Yeah, so I will make a motion to accept General Manager's recommendation number 1, which I think we have completed, and then recommend 2A.
All right. We have a motion by Director Riffle, second by Director Holman to support General Manager's recommendations 1 and 2A. And a roll call, please.
Director Gleason?
Yeah, I just want to echo the comments about the report. I thought that was great, and thank you all for all the work. I'll vote yes.
Director Sear?
Enthusiastic yes.
Director
I've
Riffle?
just watched budget process over quite a few years, and it gets better and better and better, and it's more comprehensive. And so I enthusiastically vote yes.
Director Riffle?
Yes.
President Christine Tucker?
Yes.
Director Holman?
Yes.
Director Kishimoto? Director McNiven?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 7-0.
All right. Thank you all. That was a lot of information. We really appreciate the presentation this evening and everybody sticking with us. So
thank you.
We'll move now to committee reports. And Director Riffle.
Yeah, we had our kickoff meeting for the BAE committee yesterday, and the BAE committee, just to remind you, is Director Holman, Vice President, Director Holman, President Kirsten Tucker, and BAE committee member for life, Director Riffle.
And chair.
And so we set our schedule, and we also had a good discussion with our consultant that's going to help us work this. This is Nelson, who all of us have worked with RPMG, who will be helping us administer the process this year. So all in all, we're off to a good start.
Thank you.
In regards to Director Riffle's being the lifetime chair of the BAE committee, it is, as I said yesterday, it's like a Supreme Court appointment. It is a lifetime appointment.
All right. Thank you. We'll move now to staff reports. Do we have any?
Just very quickly, we completed the final signatures and we have a signed agreement with Bear Creek, Friends of Bear Creek Stables to manage Bear Creek Stables starting July 1st.
All right. Great. Thank you, Brian. Anybody else? Oh, okay. Directors. Reports. Let's start with Director McKinnon. You have anything to report this evening?
I just went to the Skyline Field Office presentation by staff, for which I thank the staff for doing that so well. It was really fun and it's going to be a great project. Thank you for inviting the public over.
Dr. Kishimoto.
Yes, let's see. Well, I wanted to thank our staff and our docents for helping me host there was a Save the Redwoods group that came to visit Bear Creek Stable, not Bear Creek Stables, Bear Creek Preserve on Friday, May 29th. And so, yes, I really appreciate your help. And Director Gleason joined us as well.
Director Holman, do you have anything? Director Holman? Oh, okay. Director Gleason.
Yeah, so I had a Santa Clara County Special Districts Association meeting that included a post and Open Space Authority presentation on Coyote Valley, master planning and wildlife linkages. That was really good. Also attended a Newt Patrol update via Zoom, where they talked about their first season of assisted migration, actually physically helping newts across Almer Bridge Road. And they reported that they had helped at least 840 newts across the road this season. Thank you very much to Director Kishimoto for the Save the Redwoods hike. And then also I wanted to mention that I was on a docent-led event this weekend, and I saw the new interpretive panels that have been installed on the Montebello Preserve on the Stevens Creek Nature Trail. And my understanding is that that was done on the initiative of one of our natural resources employees. And I just wanted to really thank them, as well as other people who helped. It's really, really a nice improvement.
Director Sear.
Thank you. I don't have any kind of out of the area report, but I have something in the area. Had an opportunity to do something today that I haven't had a chance to do for quite some time. And that is wander around and just say hello to folks. Now, today was a lot of people out in the field, so there were a lot of empty cubicles. But I had an opportunity to introduce myself to several of the interns that we have. I mean, so these folks haven't been on board for more than a couple of months. And one of the things I do, my favorite question is I ask everybody I run into that I haven't met here before. I said, what's the best thing about working here? Almost to a person, it's the people. One of the interns I was talking with today asked her that question, and she said, you know, she's been on board for a month and a half, and she said, folks, you know, backed her up, they encouraged her, she felt welcome and useful, and we just have the, you know, like Mary used to say, we're the best staff in the world, and I really have that sense. And of course, it makes a huge difference in their ability to just be tremendously effective. So, and I just pass along that I've heard by the grapevine that folks kind of like that happening. So if any of you feel encouraged to just pop in if you get an extra few minutes and just say hello, it really goes a long way. So just happy to be able to do it today because I had a couple of hours between meetings. So.
Good, thank you. Director Ripple.
Sure. So on June 5th, I had a walking meeting with our general manager, and it was great to catch up at Rancho San Antonio and also check out the ADA project that we talked about at our last meeting. So we had a chance to actually personally experience how people use that access road. Also went to the SFO open house on Saturday, and great presentation, and it was great to see Larry Hassett there. Made the trip up. Had June 9th had Brown Act training. Thank you, Hillary, for providing that. And the BAE committee that we talked about. And then finally, just a note that our sister agency, this Santa Clara Valley Open Space Authority, their Measure D passed.
Yay.
So
Yeah.
huge win for them. So glad to see that.
Terrific.
And
all right.
Thank you, Post, for making that possible.
Yeah, for sure. That's great news. Well, the only new thing that I'll report tonight is I did have a conversation with the videographer for Guardians of Nature video. So soon we will be having more information about that and perhaps be contacted for interviews. And I know they're planning to work with our public affairs staff as well. So stay tuned for more info on that. And with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.